Today on
Doomed!
Should one of the country's leading vaccine experts go on UFC commentator Joe Rogan's very popular podcast and debate a friend of Roger Stone and anti-vaxxers everywhere about the, I guess, legitimacy or whether vaccines work? That's been the discourse that has basically taken the internet, well, probably just Twitter, by storm this past weekend. And if you're wondering what's going on, why this is even a thing in the year 2023, this episode of Doomed with Matt Binder will break it all down for you. Now let me pull up myself and my guest up on the feed so you can see us all and we can get started on this great, I mean, it's going to be a great episode, but the topic maybe not so much. But joining me now to discuss all of this, you might know him as TheBadStats on Twitter, where he had a viral thread basically breaking down Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s recent appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast. Dan Gilbert, thank you so much for joining me.
Howdy. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to have you on. And, you know, you are a great follow on Twitter. You're a numbers guy. Your Twitter thread is your Twitter username is TheBadStats. You often, you're not really one of those like gimmick accounts that just focus on one thing, but TheBadStats comes from you doing these breakdowns of people playing around with numbers and data and, not being so accurate. And this one went especially viral because this one involved a presidential candidate and the top podcaster in the country, if not the world. I guess Joe Rogan's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest. So Dan, what was it about this episode that caught your attention?
Yeah, so like what I normally do is, by the way, my account, when I started my account, I didn't really intend to make it like a gimmick account or anything. BadStats happens to just have been my username from Discord. So I started my account, but I do have a statistics background, so I post about statistics sometimes. And my real passion has always been getting mad about Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein, because I would watch all of their content and then I would just sort of make clips from it when I started my Twitter account, it was mostly just to complain about the stupid things they say. It happens to be the case that a lot of times the stupid things they say have to do with like bad science claims and bad statistics claims.
Right, because those guys think they're very smart. So they like to throw around numbers and data, and they bring up studies that literally like weeks earlier were debunked as being falsified or fake or fraudulent. Those type of guys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess YouTube has learned that that's what I like to watch, and now I just sort of like I'm a creature of just whatever YouTube gives me. I just click on it and I watch like the dredges of like anti-vax YouTube. And so that's a lot of like Brett Weinstein and John Campbell, but most of the sort of like IDW and IDW adjacent figures have like dipped their toes into it to varying extents. It almost never happens that somebody in this sphere will say like, that's a hard line for me. I will not go into like anti-COVID vax stuff. Until now, it's been almost completely anti-COVID vax stuff, and the usual refrain is like, don't call us anti-vaxxers. It's absurd to call us anti-vaxxers. That just shows how shallow a thinker you are, because we're against maybe this particular vaccine rolled out in this particular way at this particular time with this particular amount of testing. But we love vaccines. We are vaccinated ourselves. We vaccinated our children. So to call us anti-vax is totally absurd, which doesn't stop me. I call anyone who's, does like misinformation about the COVID vaccine an anti-vaxxer.
I mean, it to me, like, listen, we could maybe there's certain individuals out there who are specifically hesitant about one specific thing and take all the other and are pro all the other vaccines, and we could debate whether that person would be considered an anti-vaxxer. But the idea that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Literally, like if you were to like look in the like if there was like a modern, I'm sure there is all over the. I mean, probably many websites do this very thing. But if you were to like open up a book and look up like in an encyclopedia, anti-vaxxer, his face would be there. This guy is the leading anti-vaccine or vaccine hesitant or vaccine questioner or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But he's
I mean, I
the
think it's
guy.
basically him and Andrew Wakefield. Like he's like one of the top two, I think. And I didn't know this beforehand. Like I didn't really know who he was because I only really paid attention to like this modern strain of anti-vaxxism and stuff having to do with the COVID vaccine. So RFK has throughout the pandemic been doing anti-COVID vaccine stuff, but I just wasn't paying attention and I didn't really know that he was like the guy who wrote the Rolling Stone Salon article about thimerosal and vaccines and is like, I don't know, he's kind of a father of this movement. So it is funny that now all of the people, almost every single, I don't know, I can't think of an example of somebody for whom this crossed the line from them being, skeptical of the COVID vaccine to, but I will not, I will not stand for, RFK, Brett Weinstein, all the IDW people. They are in any given Twitter fight that they've gotten themselves into fully on like the RFK side of like, yeah, you should debate him. You're scared. Elon Musk tweets that Peter Hotez won't debate RFK Jr. because he's scared because he knows he's wrong. So that's pretty straightforwardly Elon Musk saying RFK Jr. is right. This vaccinologist Peter Hotez is wrong.
Right.
That's
We'll get into
scenario.
We'll get into all that in more in depth in a second. But I just wanted to, I guess as we just start getting into this interview with Rogan and RFK Jr., I should give full disclosure here that I in the early 2010s when I was working at the Majority Report with Sam Cedar, when Sam would do Ring of Fire, the other he does numerous shows and Ring of Fire is one of them. He would at the time in the early 2010s. RFK Jr. was not a anti-vaxxer yet, or was public as an anti-vaxxer. He was just known as like a top like climate science lawyer, and so he was on Ring of Fire quite frequently. And I would like when Sam would do the show, I would patch him through, and I'd sometimes hear as part of my job, and I'd hear RFK Jr. on the other end, and they do a show. But then, like, as the years went by, I don't even know how many. Like, maybe it was just like a year or two. I don't even remember the time frame. But like, he started to become really open with his vaccine stuff. And this got to be like 2011, maybe 2012, 2013. Like, we're talking 10 years ago. And they had to, I mean, I don't know if this is why they officially cut ties, but I'm sure this had something to do with it. He was no longer part of the show after, he became one of the leading, faces of the anti-vaxxer movement. So he's been on this beat well before. Like, this isn't a guy who got caught up in the COVID, the COVID contrarian talk where all these people, they suffered from the lockdowns and they spent all this time online and they went nuts. No, this is not. I mean, I don't give those people a pass either. But RFK Jr. is a guy who has been on the anti-vax beat many, 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 many years before there was any COVID. So I just want people to understand that this is the guy who, when we're talking anti-vaxxers, like, this is the face of the anti-vax.
I still see basically, so people will say, and he said in the I think Rogan interview that he's not anti-vax. He says he's not anti-vax because he says, but the criteria for being not anti-vax is, like, in theory, in principle, I'm not against the principle that a vaccine could be created that a person maybe should take in certain situations, that if you're going into the jungle and you might be exposed to some horrendously deadly disease, then maybe you should consider taking the vaccine that's specifically for that or something, and therefore you're not anti-vax. The definition of anti-vax is just sort of like in the mind of people who are in this like sort of like vaccine skeptical belief system is basically just a category. I don't know who they think is in it, because if RFK isn't in it, then you just don't believe in that category. You just think it's like a slur that applies to basically nobody. I don't really take that approach. I feel like if somebody calls me like a commie or woke or like an SJW or something, my reaction isn't just to be like, no, I'm not a commie because, that doesn't apply to me, or to try to find a way that sort of like insulting phrase doesn't apply to me. I just roll with it because I know what they mean by it. Like, I know to them it's just that they're saying like, you're in that group that is not my group. And I just wish the anti-vaxxers would sort of take the same like approach. Just be like, okay, yeah, I know you think that I'm an anti-vaxxer, so I understand why you're labeling me that way.
Right. As someone who always has to make some sort of pro wrestling reference, to me, not considering RFK Jr. an anti-vaxxers, if someone was like, hey, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Andre the Giant, The Undertaker, those guys don't count as pro wrestlers. Like, what? That's like the names in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, if you believe what RFK believes about vaccines, that like basically like most vaccines that have ever been created have been like horrendously toxic and just screw up your body in countless ways that just screw you up for life, including just like causing epidemics of childhood diseases. I don't know why you wouldn't just say, yeah, I'm an anti-vaxxer. I think the vaccines are, the fact that we're getting vaccines from pharma and they're being approved by the FDA, and I believe they're colluding and they're putting out really toxic chemicals with no, hesitation, then I would just say, yeah, I'm an anti-vaxxer. I think that like vaccines are screwed up and it's not something we should be doing.
Right. But I don't know. They're aware of the stigma, I guess, around anti-vaxxers. If it's well deserved. But they're aware, just like the right always try, like there's always those guys who are like, oh no, I'm not a right winger. I mean, yeah, you are. I mean, the IDW, who like they just refuse to just admit they're right wingers because they know what it means to come out and be an open right winger. You share beliefs that honestly a good percentage of this country find absolutely, to use the word, deplorable, quite frankly. And so they're afraid to actually embrace the identity that comes along with their ideology.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like an equivalent. There's probably some sort of equivalent on the right of people who like are called by people on the right left wingers, and they say, no, I'm a right winger really, or like, they're called rhinos or something. But I do think it's more of a thing that people who have sort of like gone through this transformation and ended up believing a lot of reactionary things now, they don't want to be considered right wing because they view themselves as like historically a left winger. Maybe in the back of their heads, they have some relatively left-wing economic beliefs, even though that's not what they talk about on their podcast. And so they just don't. I don't think I think that they are personally. They believe that they shouldn't be called right-wing because in their hearts they think that they're left-wing. But I guess also it's very unclear exactly what left-wing means to them. I think it just, to a lot of people, it just means like you're a man of the people and you care about the little guy. That's what being a left-wing means. So if you're an anti-vaxxer, it's because you care that they're being poisoned. So you must be a left-winger. I don't know.
Right.
It gets very murky.
I mean, it is true that, like, years ago, I would consider the anti-vaccine position to be, like, more of, like, I don't know if you want to attribute left wing to it, because I don't think it's a political ideology, but, like, hippies and people like that, like the natural, organic type people, that movement, like the goop people.
Crunchy
What's her
liberals,
name?
Yeah.
Yeah, like those
Gwyneth
type of
Paltrow.
people. Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow, right? Like those type of people, not necessarily like, not people who advocate for like leftist policies, but I guess people who would be considered on the left end of things because of their hippie-esque status. But yeah,
it's definitely not an original observation, but like the pandemic just sort of seems to have catalyzed like this huge like sort of political it was mostly the Biden administration during the pandemic. It was mostly like a Biden government, and basically it's like anything any of the health authorities did was considered to be bad. And so that just led to like all kinds of different types of skepticism, including skepticism of the vaccine, which now seems to be leading to skepticism of all vaccines, which is really,
I mean, if you think about it though, Trump with his Operation Warp Speed, it's amazing though, like how everything flipped. Like Trump was out there pushing the vaccine and pushing for it to be made and talking it up big time. It started officially rolling out when he was still president. People were getting vaccinated under Trump. I mean, I know what you're saying in terms of like the mainstream rollout for most people was under Biden by the time it finally got to like people who weren't in the medical fields or the people who were most vulnerable. But, those were the same vaccines that were given to those people under Trump.
There were also some weird dynamics with Fauci because Fauci was working with Trump and Fauci was pretty polite about it, but I think people knew that there was like conflict between Fauci and Trump. So people who were Trump fans started to see Fauci as like a villain. And so then, yeah, like anything that the CDC did or like Department of Health.
Right. It's amazing where we are. And where we are now is RFK Jr., who is, running for president in 2024. He is a Democratic primary candidate. The polls show him as the second place Democratic candidate. Again, not many people are running because we have a Democratic incumbent, and Joe Biden is well ahead. But, it's pretty astonishing to see someone with these anti-vaxxer sensibilities, again, the leading anti-vaccine voice, polling at all in a Democratic primary. I think it's mainly because people are just unfamiliar with him and they see the name Kennedy. But he goes on Rogan's show, and this episode released on when what was it, Friday, June 16th, or is that when
Thursday?
Okay, Thursday, June 15th. And you watched it, you ran through it. So why don't you why don't we start with what are some things that stood out to you that like people should be, I guess, sort of aware, I guess, both A, about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and then B, sort of, I guess, also they should be aware that this stuff is getting out there on what is the most listened to podcast, I believe, on the internet.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, so like one thing is that Joe Rogan is he likes to position himself as if all he does is he just like asks questions to people that he finds interesting, and he'll have people on the show and he'll just talk to them because he loves free speech so much and conversation that he'll talk to various scientists and people can make up their own minds and that kind of thing. But I don't know how he believes that about himself because he very clearly on his show repeatedly expresses a very specific opinion about the vaccines and which people are good and which people are evil. And so, for instance, he'll talk about on the show about how he on his phone has a folder full of studies that he shows people in real life who say that he should get vaccinated and, to prove that actually, no, he shouldn't because the vaccines are harmful. And, over time, his position has moved to, like, oh, it's crazy that they would vaccinate anybody who is young and healthy. It's crazy that they would vaccinate maybe old people who aren't me, who are, on their, sickly, not people like me who are fit and take care of themselves and that kind of thing.
But the weird thing is, like, listen, I am an adult in my mid 30s. Joe Rogan is what, early 50s, I believe. What vaccines are other than maybe like a flu vaccine like once a year, which again, not many, especially adult males in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and I'm assuming maybe Rogan's age, take, because again, they probably think they're very healthy. But again, like, what vaccines is this guy walking around worrying about? Like, I've not.
It's just a COVID vaccine. Like, I'm sure he never took any flu vaccines or anything. But like when they were telling him he should get a COVID vaccine,
it's just so weird though to like
absurd.
that they focus on, like, again, like you take there's a number of vaccines you get as a child. I have 2 kids. They're vaccinated, and I've seen how the vaccines are given to them. They get like 1 or 2, and like when they're first born, they get like 1 or 2 every few months or something like that, and then they get like 1 or 2 once a year after that. Like, and then it gets progressively less to the point where like you're not worried about vaccines unless you're getting a flu vaccine once a year. This is not something like most people even like think twice about, because this isn't just about the COVID vaccine, especially if you're talking to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Like, you're not, just folk like Rogan's no longer just talking to the COVID people.
Yeah, I think until now it was just about the COVID vaccine, and I think until I don't know, maybe a month ago or something, Rogan would have told you it's crazy to call me an anti-vaxxer because I don't think there's anything wrong with any of the other vaccines. It's just these COVID vaccines crazy. They're pushing it on us. It doesn't work, that kind of thing. And now he like made a transition. He says at the beginning of this episode, I read your book, RFK Jr., The Real Anthony Fauci, which is full of just sort of like a comprehensive tome of all of the COVID era conspiracy theories about, like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, vaccines, just all other kinds of like conspiracies about lockdowns and what they were trying to do to us. And then it also goes into some more historical things he has about like the HIV response. He has heterodox views on like the treatment for HIV and that kind of thing, which is something I need to dive into more, which is also something which has a lot of stigma around it, and probably for good reason.
Right. I mean, I love that you said the heterodox, because they love you just don't like me for my heterodox views. It's like,
yeah, that's their euphemism. Like, well, to me, it's a euphemism. That's what they call themselves. Like people who believe like what things people in this podcast sphere believe, and not the things that people like in universities and the government believe. But yeah, they're just heterodox thinkers. What's wrong with that?
I don't even like. It's it is stunning that and I think this is a great time to bring this up, because this part from this Rogan interview really went viral because it's so ridiculous, but it's one of those, I guess, heterodox views. Please tell me about what RFK Jr. talked about with Rogan involving Wi-Fi, because that I think that is like, if you're listening to this and you're one of those people who've heard these conspiracy theories about vaccines and autism, and we'll get into that more in a second. And maybe you're like, there's a lot we don't know about that. I'm not familiar with vaccines. I mean, there is a lot. I'm being clear here. I'm talking from their point of view. There's a lot we know, actually. There's also some we don't, but we know that vaccines are safe. And and you're one of those people who believe these things because it's confusing stuff. Medicine, science, you're not familiar with vaccines. You use Wi-Fi every single freaking day. Wi-Fi's been around you for decades at this point. Cell phone towers have been around you for decades at this point. If this was happening, what you're about to tell us, then we would have a real problem, and this would be happening all over the world. It'd be like an apocalypse scenario. So if like this guy's beliefs here on this thing isn't giving you red flags about everything else he says, then I don't know what to say. What does RFK Jr. believe about Wi-Fi?
Yeah, well, I mean, he just bunched together. He said Wi-Fi and like cell phone radiation. Both of them, he didn't sort of distinguish which does which, but they give you like glioblastomas behind your ear, or like in your ear. They give you brain cancer, and they give you he thinks that Wi-Fi causes it like damages your blood-brain barrier, which gives you something he calls leaky brain. So I include that how it sort of happened relatively. I think it was like near the middle or end of the episode. Like it wasn't right up front, but I put it near the top of the thread because I just thought it would be the case that like hopefully people would look at that and say, okay, maybe I'm curious about what he has to say about vaccines, but like that would be a step too far for them. That would give them the impression that maybe this really is not a person who's like just a curious, science-oriented person who's going to tell them interesting facts, but this is a person that they probably should not be listening to. And I think it's hard for me to get a sense. I certainly got a lot of responses from people being like, it's true, and then they would like link something. Almost all of them sort of links to pages with like interesting names from some sort of advocacy group or something that didn't ultimately link to any kind of like papers or anything. So there wasn't much for me to dig into.
I think the Wi-Fi one was specifically the one where people were sending around this link to prove that they claim proved RFK Jr.'s claims. But the link they were sending around, because again, there's nothing out there that proves or backs up what RFK Jr. is saying here. The link they were sending, the only one they could find, was actually a link back to an organization attached to RFK Jr. Like they actually were just like sending his own views as proof as to what he was saying.
Yeah, that happened in the episode actually. Like Joe Rogan was skeptical that actually Wi-Fi is giving us brain cancer and melting our brains. So he had Jamie fact check it, and which is kind of absurd because I don't know how you're supposed to fact check like something like that in real time. I guess Jamie's sitting there Googling. Both of them were just sort of looking to see but the problem with Rogan is that his idea of fact checking is just to sort of check whether this claim is being made anywhere. Because I guess he has guests on sometimes who are so crazy that they'll just say things that just like are unheard of on the internet. So if he asks Jamie to fact check something and Jamie's able to pull up a page that has like a paragraph that says something similar, Joe Rogan's response is just to be like, holy cow, this is real. This is like also on the internet. And to him, that seems to be meaningful. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. I don't know if he fully believes it, but we're going to see like in the future if he brings it up with other guests or if he starts to mention how this is something we should be worried about, or if he just never brings it up again. I'm kind of curious to see which is the case.
I mean, that's the whole idea behind like Rogan is doing his own research. Like literally, that's what they mean when they say doing your own research. Yeah. They even have the whole DYR, do your own research, DYOR, whatever it is, DYOR, do your own research. Like that's what they mean when they say that. They're not like actually like conducting a scientific study of their own and getting their own groupings together, or even like diving into like medical journals and looking through the data. No, they're just searching on Google or on one of the other search engines. Like their favorite is usually DuckDuckGo.
Yeah. In some ways, I prefer that because, well, so there's like different levels of doing your own research, right? And so there's like Googling just to see if you find anything that says something similar. And so some people in responses to my thread will just sort of link me those things and be like, looks like you don't know what you're talking about. Then there's people who will go look at like scientific studies. Maybe on this issue it's kind of hard because there are no studies showing that Wi-Fi or cell phone radiation or whatever causes any of these problems. Like any paper that looks at it in any way is just going to come to the conclusion that it did not find evidence that was the case. Most people will just link things that say that there's evidence that some electromagnetic waves can cause cancer, like in like the ionizing spectrum. So, and then they just sort of like say, you see, they're dangerous. But like on other claims having to do with COVID and various like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, stuff like that, it's almost more dangerous the people who do go and grab scientific studies, because it's really, really, really difficult for an individual person who's not like in the field to like have enough context to understand the relative importance of a piece of paper and also like the quality of the research. Some people have the skills to assess the quality of the research more so, but there will like always be open questions about it. And so people who will like go grab an individual study showing that something is true are like sort of more dangerous, because if I make the claim like ivermectin is not effective for COVID, which is a claim that's like consistent with what all the medical bodies have determined and like meta-analyses have determined, you can still go online and search in like ivermectin trial and find a bunch that do find like a positive result for COVID. A lot of those are going to be observational studies, so they're not actually like controlled trials. A lot of them are going to be trials that turned out to be fraudulent in the case of ivermectin. A lot of them are going to be like small trials that just found a positive result by chance. And so you can post the study and be like, look, this study found a positive result for ivermectin. I do think most people will see that and they'll say, oh, turns out there is evidence that like ivermectin is, works for COVID, because that's why it's so important, I think, that people need to trust like more authoritative sources of information that are more likely to like aggregate all of the evidence. So like meta-analyses, but also just like Wikipedia or like the CDC. On the CDC page for ivermectin, it's going to say ivermectin is not effective as COVID-19. And we know this because of many studies and like meta-analyses that compile these studies. But part of this conspiracy theory ecosystem is that they have been told, or they have come to the conclusion for themselves, that they cannot trust things like Wikipedia, like, AP fact check, the CDC website. So if you show them any government website, any sort of like official source, they're going to be like, really? You link me to AP fact check? You've already, given me a reason not to listen to you. So it's really difficult.
Right. So let's get to this actually, because I do think we should, you mentioned in your write-up here that there is basically a central conspiracy theory that RFK Jr. has, basically pinned everything on here, or at least the foundations of his anti-vaccine beliefs. And that is what you say, the central conspiracy theory that the CDC commissioned a study by Verstraeten. I don't know what that is.
Verstraeten or something. Yeah.
Verstraeten, yeah. Which found that the thimerosal in vaccines causes autism, and then nefariously conspired at a conference called Simpsonwood to cover it up. I mean, this sounds like with these names here, it's almost like the early Alex Jones conspiracy theories with like the Bilderberg Group.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. I'm not a and we'll get a little bit more into this later, because this is a sort of a connected but separate topic. But like, I'm always open to talking with people who don't agree with me. But I also know like my limitations, and I am in no way, shape, or form informed enough about this stuff, whether it be the data, the numbers, or the medical side of things, to argue this stuff. So like the fact that they want to, like, you got a podcaster and a lawyer who is running for president, talking about medical issues here as if they are experts is just stunning to me. But can you explain a little bit about this central conspiracy that underlines RFK Jr.'s anti-vaxxer beliefs here?
Yeah, so I only really learned about this after I watched the episode. So I'm like more, I've been paying very close attention to various conspiracy theories and stuff about the medicine during COVID, but I just didn't know about this sort of like old school anti-vax stuff. So this is all stuff that I looked up basically after watching the episode. A really good source for this is David Gorski. So he's Gorskon on Twitter, and he's one of the authors behind the website Science-Based Medicine. And he basically for decades, and just that website, have just been like hounded. Like they've just been sort of like, when there's viral conspiracy claims on the internet, they write blog posts about it, and they just they link to the study showing why it's wrong. They explain what the conspiracy is, and they comment on it. David Gorski, I feel like, has become kind of world weary, and he's just said that he's just like had it up to here with these people, and he's like very experienced, and he knows a lot about this particular conspiracy theory because he wrote about the Salon article when it came out in 2005. He wrote about, so he's been writing about this for decades whenever it sort of resurfaces. So I learned about it mostly from reading like his content and then like looking at the original sources that RFK Jr. mentioned. But basically, the CDC was at a certain point interested in looking at whether the thimerosal in vaccines caused autism, and oftentimes or other sort of like cognitive issues. Oftentimes like the first way to do this is you can't do like a randomized controlled trial really to determine whether like there's like an effect this subtle, or by like withholding vaccines from people. So they're going to do it using sort of observational data. So they're going to look back in their health records, and they're going to like try to find, okay, is there a correlation between vaccination and autism? Which almost certainly there's going to be, right? Because if autism rates are rising over time and also vaccination rates are rising over time, then there's going to be a correlation between vaccination and autism. But that's for two separate reasons, right? So the causal relationship is confounded by like confounding variables. So just looking at like the correlation between those two things isn't going to actually tell you whether vaccines are causing autism. So if you're going to try to like determine a causal relationship from data like that, you have to try to control for as many variables as possible that might be confounding it. Even then, you're probably still going to be left with some residual effect that you can't explain away, and that may or may not be causal. Which is why, for something like this that's like so important and like has so many like biological mechanisms that we understand, we can go ahead and do other types of studies like in vivo studies in animals and that kind of thing to see what's happening with the thimerosal. But basically the Verstraeten study, he like published like an original draft that just did like one part of the analysis before he had controlled for various variables. He found a correlation between vaccine and autism. Later he published like a sort of second version of the analysis that did control for variables, and this association went away or became small. And RFK's conspiracy theory is basically the first version is the real science, and then the second version came out because he was told to cover it up, and that this Simpsonwood meeting was the meeting where they decided to cover it up. And this is based on the fact that from the transcript of this meeting at Simpsonwood, one of the scientists lamented the fact that unfortunately people who are not as like scientifically literate as them are probably going to misconstrue these results. So ironically, of course, that's what happens. Um, so yeah, so I mean that's like the core of the conspiracy theory. It's always like anytime you can get like a transcript or like FOIA documents from anything, like conspiracy theorists just love to just like take sentences and be like, just assume that it means something 1,000 times more evil than what it's actually saying.
Right. There's also like, and you know, this is why I usually try to get an expert to break it down. Whether it's, you know, reading a explanation online in an article or a post, or, you know, if I have someone on the show, because a lot of times there's like scientific terminology that doesn't match like like a adjacent sort of terminology that is like a layman's term. Like there's all sorts of different things that could be so easily misconstrued. And, you know, that's another thing we'll bring up later when it comes to the whole idea of a scientist, you know, or a medical expert being expected to debate these things. Because not it's unfortunate, this is the issue, but not everyone could be an expert in everything. Scientists and doctors aren't always the best communicators for these things too.
Yeah.
Because again, that's not their area of expertise. Just like my area of expertise isn't being a doctor or scientist. Yeah.
So like for instance, so the problem is, yeah, if you're arguing against someone who has much less shame than you and will just talk without reservation about things that they have no idea about, then you're at a disadvantage because like RFK Jr. doesn't know anything about like the science of any of these things. He's a lawyer and he's you know, he's sort of like a BS artist, so he like sort of constructs these talking points that are very sort of that are not true, but sort of not true in fancy ways that are, like, you know, have their tendrils back to the original literature but are wrong. And he has a lot of them, and he will talk about all of them. No individual scientist is going to be able to refute all of his points with expertise because he is too broad in his conspiracy theory. So like no individual scientist is going to be like an expert in all the different vaccines that he talks about and all the different types of studies that he talks about and all the different, and he can always just jump to another thing. And so the problem is, yeah, if you're being a good responsible scientist, which is sort of the thing that I'm not doing with this thread, if you're being a good responsible scientist and making sure to stay in your lane, only talk about the things on which you have expertise, you can't debate RFK Jr. And so you have to sort of, to some extent, lower yourself to you know, like broadening out the things that you'll talk about and talking about things that you don't have like you know, complete certainty on. So like, for instance, in this thread, so like I have no medical expertise. My background is in statistics. I've been following all these different conspiracy theories, so I know what they're talking about when they talk about these different studies for these different drugs. I have some ability to read studies about drugs and understand the statistical content, but I do think the expertise in that area has more to do with experience and like your breadth of understanding of that subject matter, and like, you know, what do meta-analyses of drugs like these tend to look like, what, you know, what is the usual standard and criteria by which we measure against, and not just strict like statistical standards like I would be able to assess. But in constructing this thread, I basically just had to write about a bunch of stuff that I only have a limited understanding of because because, you know, like, so I have to put my trust in like sources of people who have like looked into this before. The nice thing about RFK Jr. is his conspiracy theories are so old that like people have just like well debunked, like it's just over for the thimerosal and autism thing. And so there's just like a lot of very reliable literature on that, which I can just cite and I can just say, this is the conclusion. Like you don't have to listen to me about this. With the more recent conspiracy theory stuff about COVID drugs, I have more like personal experience just like keeping on top of those conspiracy theories. So I'm like a better person to at least like compile the sort of like what's going on with that. But yeah, it's just unfortunate. Every time I have to write about medical studies when I don't have a background in like conducting, you know, clinical trials or anything, I feel bad. But the problem is somebody has to do it, and it's really unfortunate that like information isn't organized in such a way that people can readily access responses to like any of these talking points. And so I'm just like sort of taking it when this episode came out, I sort of sighed because most of the time when I'm making these threads, it's for fun because I love to make fun of Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson, and this is because they said something so stupid that I just think people will think it's funny. So like I really enjoy making the thread. When I saw that the interview with RFK came out, and I sort of felt for the first time like I'm just gonna have to work for a couple days on this, even though I don't really want to, because I think that people will. Otherwise, I'm not sure anyone will compile a thing to point to about like the things that he got wrong during this interview. So I made this one kind of out of like a feeling of obligation and just also for my own edification, because I know I'm going to be arguing with lots of people over the next year and a half about RFK Jr. and I wanted to like know for myself, like, okay, what are the main talking points and have some familiarity with them so I don't get caught off guard.
Right. No, but I think what you said is really important though, in terms of like, because even the doctors and scientists who conduct these studies, they cite other experts in the field for their own work, and there is this whole line of citation between, with various different people of various different expertise in the various different fields involved with that particular study. And I think that's what makes like sourcing and citing someone who is well respected because they know that particular topic is crucial to this stuff. Like that's what so many of these like COVID deniers and anti-vaxxers don't have. Like you said, like RFK Jr.'s like foundational conspiracy theory for this anti-vaxxer stuff is he misread a quote. He misread a study at this one event.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much an accident, of course, but I think I don't have like a good theory of mind for people who do this, but like he's purposely, his standards are very
right.
He has like very loose standards for what evidence he'll accept and that kind of thing.
Right. So let's talk about, because I do want to talk a bit about the IDW with you, and I think this is the perfect segue into that, and that is, again, everyone should check out at the Bad Takes on Twitter and read the thread because there's a lot more. What's that?
The Bad Stats.
Oh, what did I say? The bad that's
takes.
A whole different Twitter account. I'm sorry.
It might be a better one.
There's a whole different. That is a different. But the Bad Stats. Excuse me. But you have a whole lot more debunking of RFK Jr.'s various claims there. But this whole thing, not your thread particularly, although it was cited a lot, but the RFK Jr.'s appearance on Rogan's show created a secondary discourse around debating this stuff. And it seemed like, what was the focus on? I might have missed this because, we were talking about it before we went live, and I couldn't remember exactly what day this all happened because it was, for me, it was Father's Day weekend. And I got 2 kids, and so I was busy with my kids. I guess Elon Musk, who got involved, and everyone else involved in this, I guess didn't have anything to do.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be way more online if you're gonna keep up with this stuff.
Right.
Fatherhood has made you soft.
But why did they bring up Peter Hotez? Was he mentioned on the episode?
He was mentioned on the episode.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So I think he might have been responding to something that they said about in the episode. This drives me crazy. Anytime Joe Rogan brings up Peter Hotez on the show, it's to say, so Peter Hotez came on the show once or twice, and Peter Hotez advocates for vaccines. I haven't watched those whole episodes, but I do know that Joe Rogan sort of like, you're telling us we should take vaccines. You're telling us about the importance of vaccines, but you're fat. So, why don't you eat right? And then Peter Hotez, he's kind of awkward. He's very like deferential. He's very passive. So he says, I have a weakness. I do eat junk food. I will admit sometimes. And Joe Rogan that's like a trigger spot for him. He's like, you eat junk food? Why don't you just not do that? And it is it's really frustrating. But since that time, he brings up with other guests, other anti-vax guests who come on, about how this arrogant scientist Peter Hotez comes on and tells him to take a vaccine, but Peter Hotez eats junk food. Peter Hotez is fat. So it's gross, because I know this is sort of partially just an expression of like Joe Rogan's sort of, I think, his like views on willpower and, like fitness as like a moral virtue, but because it's like fallacious to say that somebody who's fat doesn't give good advice about like medical products. It totally has nothing to do. Like, whether you choose to get or not get a vaccine is a matter of like a choice about whether to just go to the clinic and get the vaccine because of what you believe about whether the vaccine is beneficial. It has nothing to do with like having to go through the rigorous process of losing weight, whatever that involves.
Oh, so that's where, I mean, I assumed, because there was all those viral tweets about from right wingers posting like a picture of Peter Hotez next to a picture of like Joe Rogan looking all buff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and it's
who
like,
are you gonna listen to? Yeah,
who are you gonna listen to for your medical advice? And you had people on the right saying, "Oh, the fit man over there on the right, which is Rogan, over this like world-renowned vaccine expert and pediatrician." It's stunning. I mean, the idea that you would I didn't realize that this came directly from Rogan's show itself. Oh my God, these people have like, it's also a bullshit sort of question too, because I don't think even Peter Hotez would be like, come to me for all your medical advice. He just
say, you should eat junk food like I do.
Right. Yeah. His expertise is nowhere in like dietitian, whatever, and diet and all that stuff. Nor would I bet he would give advice for that. He would refer you to one of his buddies in that field who would be an expert in that field.
It's all wrapped up in, I think, this sort of view of health that Joe Rogan and a lot of his viewers have, that it's just very holistic. So it's just really like, it's like a heavy focus on how like your lifestyle and your strength and the purity of what you put in your body sort of will affect your health outcomes, and doesn't, I don't think, focus very heavily on just like the sort of like the kind of illnesses that can just happen to you. They feel like maybe like they have like a very high agency view of, what diseases you might get or that kind of thing, and they think it has a lot to do with like, the purity of the food you eat and like,
Right.
So,
I mean, I just can't get all like the idea that like you just go up to any doctor and be like, "Oh, do brain surgery on me right now." "Oh, you can't do brain surgery? Oh, you call yourself a doctor, do you?"
Yeah, exactly. Why should I listen to you? But that's another reason why it would be like, I don't think Peter Hotez should debate RFK Jr. I think it would be good if somebody did, but I don't think Peter Hotez is the right person to do it. He just isn't. In order to do it successfully, you would have to. And the context for this is that they are now, Joe Rogan is like daring Peter Hotez to come on and debate RFK Jr. Otherwise, he's a coward. And Peter Hotez is sort of like, "Oh, I don't know if I should do it." And now everybody on Twitter is giving their takes about whether or not it's good to debate, that kind of thing.
It's very obvious that Rogan's bullying the guy. I mean, he like you said, he's had him on the show. Clearly, Peter Hotez saw the opportunity to go on Rogan's show to speak to one of the largest audiences. Not because Peter Hotez wants more YouTube subscribers or podcast listeners, but because he's in the medical field and he wants to share his expertise with people in hopes that they would get vaccinated and not be worried or let the fear mongering get to them. And he thought he could dispel that. I wouldn't. Yeah. I do think him going on Rogan's show probably did convince at least a few people, if anything. I mean, there's always one or two people out there. So even if that happened, I think it was completely worth it. But when it comes to debating, I think it's absolutely like, if he doesn't feel like he's the best person to communicate, then he should not have to debate these guys.
Not only that, but if he goes on Rogan's show, so he's not just debating RFK Jr., he's also debating Rogan, who is a fan of RFK Jr., who believes what he believes about vaccines. Rogan is going to call him fat and he's going to be like, how can you say that RFK is wrong about that talking point when you're fat? And then he's just such a strange position to be in. He's going to have to be there like defending his body, and I don't think he's the right person to do it. And anyone who is the right person to do it, it would just be some sort of masterful debater who, is going to study up really well on all of RFK's likely talking points, and also just has like a really good control over the conversation, who has like a lot of experience debating and can control the conversation and not let him get away with things.
Well, they're not going to have on that guy, or girl.
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're not going to have on someone like that. Like, they know Peter Hotez, who's knows this field very well. They know, though, that they'll be able to sidestep, and that he's probably not a great communicator if there's a gang up on him. I mean, you saw this on Father's Day. Some guy accosted him at his house. Some Rogan fan went to Peter Hotez's home and recorded it, asking him if he was going on a Rogan show. And I thought, that first question while going to the guy's house is weird. Okay, whatever. You do that. You should leave immediately after you get your answer. Peter Hotez is obviously also being sort of like nice to the guy, but then he just starts attacking him for no reason, just attacking him on, it was no longer just like, oh, hey, I was just wondering, I'm a Rogan fan, are you going to go on a Rogan show? Oh, okay, cool. I just wanted to ask, goodbye. That would have been weird, but, wouldn't have been like the worst thing in the world. But then after asking, he starts throwing out all these vaccine conspiracies, attacking Peter Hotez for like killing people, I think he even said.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, is he's going on a program where I think the view of a lot of the viewers and possibly Rogan is that he's involved in a cover-up where he created COVID. He's involved in the funding of gain-of-function research, which, created COVID at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So, yeah, he's at a disadvantage for a lot of reasons. So I don't think he's the right person to do it. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen. I know what Peter Hotez wants is he just wants to go back on Rogan and say say you should get vaccinated, actually.
Right.
But I don't think Rogan's going to have that, and I don't think it would make much of a difference.
Right. I think the people who Rogan does have a big audience, and judging on some of the forums online that talk Rogan show, like the hardcore listeners, there is a faction that doesn't listen to everything Rogan says. But Peter Hotez probably already reached those people. At this point, if you're a Rogan listener who's not vaccinated, you're not. It's also for you.
It's 2023. Like, in terms of the COVID vaccine, most people have had COVID. The benefit of getting the vaccine is more marginal. So it's like not really an argument anymore about like you should get vaccinated right now because it will like potentially protect you from like having a serious outcome from the disease. It's more like a sort of retrospective argument about like, who was right about this, all of these conspiracies. Another thing is that like Peter, you could know everything about vaccine science and go on Rogan and debate, RFK Jr. and you wouldn't really have much of an advantage because he would just say, oh, but about how like the spike proteins are going to your ovaries and replicating and causing you to shed protein and actually getting into your offspring through your breast milk, and that's causing them to have like autoimmune diseases. And then he'd be like, do you have any studies proving that that's not happening? And the vaccine expert would just be like, no, what are you talking about? That's not a thing. It's just because the type of things that conspiracy theorists are talking about, all their theories about the ways in which the vaccines are harming you, they're not something that like vaccine experts are talking about. Like it's just It's so off the mark. So they just wouldn't even. It would just have to be someone who is very studied in like a very specific set of conspiracy theories. Otherwise, they're just going to look like they don't know about the true harms of the vaccine and they're being caught off guard. Right. It's very depressing to think about. Yeah.
Yes, it's also that whole thing where like, how do you disprove something that doesn't exist? You know what I mean? Like they want, like the onus is on you to prove something's happening, not on someone to prove something is not happening. Because how do you do that? You can't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. So, Elon Musk dogpiled on this and obviously got a lot of attention to it. Like you said, he was like, oh, if Peter Hotez, if you don't want to go on Rogan's show, because you You are afraid, and
Because he knows he's wrong.
he's
That's what Elon said.
but knows he's wrong about what? Like that's the whole thing. Like, what exactly do they want Peter Hotez to debate here? Like that's the thing that was like I couldn't quite grasp because again, if this was the usual sort of COVID focused stuff, okay, I you know what the topic's going to be. But is Elon Musk saying, because again, this is in the context of the RFK Jr. Rogan appearance, which, you know, everyone just heard you right here talk about how the focus of this was on anti-vaccine sentiment, period, not even focused on the COVID stuff. Are they saying that Peter Hotez is afraid to debate vaccines, period? Like we don't think babies should get vaccinated for all sorts of diseases that we've basically eradicated thanks to vaccines?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he believes. I do basically take this as an endorsement of RFK's views, sort of in general on vaccines. I just feel like if a person, if you were a person who thought that RFK Jr. was wrong about vaccines causing autism and other of these like egregiously false vaccine claims, you wouldn't feel positively or supportive of him enough in order to tweet something like they refuse to debate him because they know he's wrong, or they they know they're wrong and he's right. You just wouldn't. But Elon likes to be like strategically vague sometimes. I think like when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, and he responded, to people complaining about the conspiracy theories that he was actually his gay lover, and Elon Musk responded to some fact check, being like, "You might as well hold off on this one. This might not be totally false."
Oh my god.
Yeah, he can't be accused of claiming that it's true, but
right.
maybe it's not totally false. That's like a unassailable position.
So let's we went. Wow, we talked a lot. Let's quickly. If you have a few more minutes,
sure.
Let's quickly talk about the IDW, and you might have to come back on for an IDW episode. But I know you focus on them, and this whole debate culture. And I want to say it's very funny that these guys are, the Jordan Petersons, the Joe Rogans, the Weinsteins. These guys are all about the free-flowing exchange of ideas. Let's debate. But they so often are freaking cowards of their own who don't invite on guests who actually could provide a challenge to them. Like, that's what makes this whole thing hilarious. Like, we were just talking about, they want Peter Hotez on because they could, Rogan wants Peter Hotez on so he could bully him. Why not get on someone who can actually go toe-to-toe with you? Why not have someone on who's actually a media regular, who is trained in that field, who can discuss these things, who can talk, because that's their job. Their job isn't to, sit in a lab all day and not, have this sort of skill to know how to basically bullshit your way into winning a conversation. Why not have someone like that on? But no, they won't. They don't do that.
I do think among the so I'm a very faithful viewer of Brett Weinstein, so I watch every episode of Brett Weinstein. I just he's my favorite subject. But also I watch various other people who another person I watch is John Campbell, who he's one of the more famous YouTube. Now he's an anti-vax pro. He's ivermectin, anti-vax. There's a huge government conspiracy against us guy, even though he started out normal, which is kind of strange. And there is a barrier where they do not speak with people who are dissenting. So Brett Weinstein early on in the pandemic had a friend, an ally named Yuri Dagan. Yuri Dagan was someone who believed in lab leak theory, and to this day is a strong advocate for lab leak theory, which is something that Brett Weinstein also believes, obviously. And as soon as the sort of ivermectin topic came up, and Yuri Dagan disagreed with him about ivermectin, and Yuri Dagan disagreed with him about the vaccine efficacy, because Yuri Dagan thought the vaccines were good and not harmful, and Brett Weinstein thinks the vaccines are bad and harmful, cut off ties and just sort of making a little excuse well, you were rude in an article you wrote about me, so I won't entertain a discussion with somebody like that. Ironically, now Brett is cheering on Hotez better debate RFK Jr. Otherwise, he's a coward.
They are
similarly.
They do that all the time, all the time. You just explained it perfectly. Honestly, were you going to say another example? Give another
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, I'll just also say that Brett, just to this day, has not debated. He will not debate anybody who is like knowledgeable about like the subjects that he talks about with the other view. He won't have them on a show. He will not talk to them. He will just always say like, well, they're not worth my time. They're rude. They're a fraud or whatever. The most adversarial person he's talked to is this guy Robert Wright, who didn't really bring a challenge to him on any of the like science. He's like, I'm not going to talk about like the details of the science. I just want to say that I thought this conspiracy theory didn't really make a lot of sense. So that was their debate, and so they won't. Yeah, he will not actually engage with somebody who is likely to pull up a study and say you're wrong about this. It's not going to happen. And similarly, John Campbell. He was more normal at the beginning of the pandemic, and so he had various correspondents and other doctors. He'd sort of have his little guests on the show to talk about findings in their country, COVID numbers, that kind of thing. And one of them, Susan Oliver, so he started to talk about ivermectin, how effective ivermectin was against COVID. And Susan Oliver was someone who had appeared on his show and sent him some messages about how, like, I think that the analysis you did of ivermectin is flawed. Here's why. This is why this study doesn't necessarily show that. And she's cut off. And so they just like keep a barrier to communication where they will only talk to people who are part of their sort of like idea ecosystem, and ideas do not flow across those lines.
Oh well, that's the intellectual part of the intellectual dark web.
Yeah, definitely.
I have no like. Listen, there's a lot of right wingers I obviously find to have absolutely horrible beliefs and ideologies and opinions. But if you're someone who is at the very least open to talking to someone else who disagrees with you, no matter how rude they may be to you, then I automatically do hold you in a higher regard than fucking people like the IDW people you just mentioned. I think it is like the lowest of low. I really do. I think the idea that you would present yourself as some sort of, because they all think they're Mr. Anti-censorship, the marketplace of ideas is open for business, the information flow, but what they market themselves as is the complete opposite. They could have their horrible views, but if they had people on their shows and actually went back and forth with them on this stuff, I would hold them in a slightly different regard, honestly. And I think they are the worst of the field in the field, honestly, to not have that sort of conversation. And they are. This isn't the same as like, oh, I'm not going after like some like right-wing medical doctor. This is their bread and butter. They're right-wing talkers, and they are refusing to talk. It is amazing,
Yeah, I do think it would go a long way just to obviously there's a reason they want to do it, but they don't want to do it. Just from watching, like, if you watch John Campbell's videos every day, you just hear every single day, it sounds like the evidence has just gotten stronger that your worldview is correct, because that's the content that he produces. Every day they come up with like a new thing to say, a new paper that they can take something out of context for, or a new oh, this happened, finally proving we're right about this, of course, and they said we were wrong. Every single one of these is like out of context or a lie or somehow misleading. But it's just, if you watch it every single day, it just keeps reinforcing and reinforcing and reinforcing your worldview until it's unthinkable that somebody would just say the complete opposite. So when I say, like ivermectin doesn't work for COVID, actually, like in a thread, or lab leak is in particular, like if you tell somebody that you think that there was actually a zoonotic origin for COVID, they will just immediately, it's like the craziest thing a person could believe. It's like, how could you believe that when like every day for the last 2 years I've been hearing how much stronger the evidence has gotten, and how many more people agree with me that, and how many more official people and official agencies agree with me that it was a lab leak. And it's just like it's really hard to so now it's really difficult to communicate, because there's just sort of walled gardens, and it's just like anything you say makes it sound like you're just so lost that there's two separate like epistemological worlds. There's just like no shared reality.
Right. Well, Dan, this has been a fascinating conversation. We could probably go for another hour, actually, talking about diving deeper into the IDW stuff. So I would love for you to come back on in the future. I'm sure there'll be plenty of IDW content flowing.
They don't call themselves the IDW anymore. It's very sad, but I just feel like there will always be like the spirit of the IDW because it's such a funny term. Like,
right. So everyone, check out Dan Gilbert on Twitter at TheBadStats. Great stuff as always. Dan, was there anything else you wanted to any like maybe any links to, I don't know, other social media profiles, website, anything you want to? Nothing to plug?
Read a book real fast. Sorry, I'm just I'm a creature of Twitter, so
that makes things even simpler for me. Dan Gilbert, everyone, go check him out on Twitter. Thanks so much for joining me, Dan.
Thanks so much.
Have a great night. All right, folks. Before we go to the second half of the show, I want to leave you with this. Because I think this really does, sort of break down exactly, Joe Rogan's whole, shtick here. And this is a clip, it was going around, of comedian Bill Burr on Rogan's show. I'm not sure when this was. A couple years ago, I think. It was after COVID, I believe. Or after the COVID lockdowns, I should say. After the main, time period of the COVID pandemic. I think this really sums everything up here. Let me play this clip.
Walk down the street with a mask on?
Let's not start this, Joe.
Do you, though?
Let's not start this. Okay?
Let's start it.
I don't want to start this bullshit. I'm not going to sit here with no medical degree, listening to you with no medical degree, with an American flag behind you, smoking a cigar, acting like we know what's up better than the CDC.
And, Rogan had nothing to say to Bill Burr other than laughing at it. And, he thought it was funny. I think he was egging Bill Burr on, knowing that that was going to be Bill Burr's opinion because dude is, on top of being hilarious, he's got a good head on his shoulders, it seems, which Joe Rogan does not. All right, let's go to the second half of the show where I will take your calls, read your super chats. But before we do that, Let's go. Let me drop some quick plugs here. Folks, it's been a rough June for memberships. If you can support this show monetarily, or you've been thinking about doing so, I would love for you to join us now at patreon.com/MattBinder, where you can become a paying member of this program. Let me, hold on, don't call into the show yet, folks. Don't call into the show yet. When we go into the second half, you call in. Let me shout out the people who have become members since the last show. Let me thank Nam, T. Wickens, Alan H., and Christopher S. Thank you so much for becoming patrons at patreon.com/MattBinder. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/MattBinder. You can drop a super chat, and I will read your super chats. Go to twitch.tv/MattBinder, where I multi-stream, and you can follow me there. And if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, connect your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and you get a free Twitch Prime subscription to use on your favorite creator every month. That's no extra cost to you. Basically forces Amazon to give me a couple of bucks if you give me that Twitch Prime subscription. So once again, twitch.tv/MattBinder. Follow me on Twitter and everywhere else. Just search Matt Binder. I'll be there. What else? Check out the podcast version of this show at doomedcast.com. Check out the podcast version of my other show, Scam Economy, at scameconomy.com. With all that said, let's go into the second half of the show right now. You can call in by opening up Skype and searching Doomed Live, one word, Doomed Live, and I will take your call. after a very short break. If you're watching the live stream or you're a Patreon subscriber, you're not going anywhere. You get this show. Yeah, that's right. If you're just watching the live stream. But if you're a freebie podcast listener, like you only listen to the podcast version of the show that gets uploaded after I do this live, this is where I say to you goodbye. I will see you next time on Doomed.
Ecological collapse, corporate fascism, corporate journalism, police brutality, voter suppression, austerity economics, educate the masses, rampant homophobia, harmless sex.
We got our first caller. Hey, what's your name? Where you calling from?
What's up, Matt?
Hey,
You from Jamaica?
Dave from Jamaica. How are you doing, my friend? What are we going to talk about today? I don't think you are exactly what you claim you are. I would say you're a conservative. What makes you a liberal? I'm pro-Green New Deal. Are you? Yes, really? Absolutely. No, I have watched the show. I've seen you completely come out and get really mad at Alexander. We are back on the show. Geez, a lot of people calling in right now. Hello, everyone. We are back on the show. Geez. Just tons of calls. Tons of calls. Let's take the first one. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Matt Binder. Hello. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I heard my name mentioned several times, and my ears started to burn, and I needed to call in and make one thing very clear. I was not able to speak on one very important issue on the Joe Rogan show. And I'm hoping I could quickly make my points here because I can't get back on that show for a while. He's quite booked up. So would it be all right if I make my one additional point that I think will help me in the election for president in the coming election?
Well, Bobby Kennedy, everyone. Bobby Kennedy, Robert RFK Jr. calling into the show. Wow, I appreciate it. This is unexpected, but wow, thanks for calling in. What?
I've been seeing some of your tweets bouncing around, and Elon Musk pointed them out to me as things he places on his dartboard to throw darts at. But regardless of that, I know you're quite respected with Tech Smash and the other things you write for. So
sure.
Would it be all right if I made one of the points that I was unable to make and on the Joe Rogan program here?
Go ahead, please, by all means.
Well, one of the things I wanted to mention is that gravity isn't real. Gravity created by NASA in order to fund projects related to keeping people on the ground. Did you know that people are actually magnetic?
No.
Well, the Earth has a magnetic field. I'm sure you know that.
Right. Sure.
And that's why everything people stay to the ground because of the magnetism. Now we have to be very concerned because the poles are shifting. So we're all going to have to move depending on where the poles go. So we may all have to move like 10 miles south of where we are now. But big gravity is out to keep you down. That's the problem. And we'll be addressing that during my administration.
How are you going to address that?
Getting rid of all the magnets,
Okay.
because no one knows how they work anyway.
Bobby, are you familiar with a musical group called the Insane Clown Posse?
Uh, uh, well, no, not really. Uh, uh, I know Andy Williams and Johnny
Okay.
Mathis. Do they sing about gravity or anything?
They actually have a very
I,
famous song about asking about how magnets work.
I could use whatever help I could get on proving that gravity isn't real. It's a big scam providing billions of dollars in taxpayer funding to government projects at secretive laboratories underground in which they have more magnets to make you fatter in certain areas of the country.
Okay.
We'll be addressing this during my administration. Thank you so much, Matt. You're a real great guy, and I appreciate what you're doing for America. You have a good night, and God bless America.
Thanks for calling in, but I hope to hear from you more as the campaign rolls on. Bobby
Well,
Kennedy, everyone.
be sure to keep you updated. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Take care. Oh my god. That was a fantastic RFK Jr. Oh my god. That was I almost feel I almost feel like I spoke to the man himself. No, I'm actually flattered that someone with that good of a Bobby Kennedy would call into the show. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
G'day, Matt. It's John from Australia. How you doing?
Hey, John. How you doing? What do you want? I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And look, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to take issue with RFK here.
About gravity?
Well, maybe that's for another call. But it's more about this EMF stuff that's sort of come back into the fore. This is sort of a personal bugbear of mine. So I've said before on the show that I work in tech for quite some time. The field specifically was related to telecommunications. So as part of that, I was exposed to quite a good bit of like ongoing EMF research over the last like decade or so.
So you've experienced the brain leak.
Well, and as well as the research, I was going to say I've experienced a lot of EMF myself. So,
right. So, go ahead, John. You always have great takes on the tech industry, and you always call into Scam Economy's post-show live stream with great takes on crypto and all sorts of stuff in that industry. Now, bring me the medical advice. How quickly should we be getting rid of our Wi-Fi and our? How quickly should we be chopping down the cell towers? Actually, I shouldn't even joke about that because literally people have actually attacked the cell towers in an effort to stop those because they believe that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is sort of like one of my hobbies is sort of reading about conspiracies and stuff as well. It's interesting to see sort of like this combined with it. But again, to reiterate your joke, but like I am not a researcher, I'm not a scientist, and to my knowledge, neither are you. So like everything that's said on this show that I say, that you say, that even any of your guests say, provided that they aren't a researcher in this field, probably don't take it as gospel. It's not a clear field. It's not as clear cut as it appears. But unfortunately, and it's sort of a byproduct of the times that we live in, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to have these sort of like even-handed discussions about this sort of stuff. It's wild to me that a concept like are cell phones potentially harmful, or even is a certain technology potentially harmful, has become this bizarre, like weird, potentially culture war thing. It's mind-boggling. It shouldn't be the case. But the facts on this are something that RFK mentioned on the Joe Rogan show was that like nobody's studying it. It's being suppressed or whatever, right? That's just plain not true. I think it's absolutely not true.
Right.
We've been studying this since the 90s, specifically mobile phones, specifically mobile phone use, people using them as it relates to things like tumors. We've been specifically studying that thing since the 90s. It's very difficult research to do. It's not just as simple as like, hey, you use a mobile phone and have you got a tumor in your brain? It's not that simple. We can't like lock people in a room for 15 years and give them like a Nokia 3310 to use. It just doesn't work that way. People have to live their lives, and we have to do this research ethically. On top of that, there's like just so many confounding variables. Like if you're talking about EMF exposure, like every device, every electronic device emits some form of EMF. It's very difficult to control for all this stuff. However, the World Health Organization, along with a couple of other groups, have had a long-term study running since 1996. I think they provided a report in 2016. So that's a 20-year study. From that research, if I'm recalling it correctly, they found a slight increased risk of glioma, which is a form of brain tumor, in the top 10% of mobile phone users. That is like call time. Now, it's important to stress that, like, again, because of all these confounding factors, because of the margins of error and that sort of thing, that even that slight increased risk, they aren't 100% on. They don't know. But that's what that research showed. Now, here's the kicker. It's entirely possible that we may never actually get a definitive answer on this. Because in 1996, using your phone meant holding it up to your head. Now, that's just not the case.
Right.
Like, phone calls are increasingly less common than they were in 1996. Even just phone calls, right? Like, this would be like trying to find out if fax machine usage led to some medical condition, and we were trying to find that out now. It's just not going to work. No one's using fax machines anymore.
I want to say, like, to me, the conspiracy theories about cell phones causing this, causing tumors or something from the RFK Jr. Appearance on Joe Rogan, like, the actual content wasn't surprising to me. It was that he was saying this in the year 2023. Like, I remember in the early days of cell phone usage becoming like more mainstream, this was an actual thing that was going around, and there were studies conducted, and there had to be like people saying like, no, there's nothing to worry about. And then there were the studies were like, oh, but like there was this small uptick that we can't even confirm, but you know how local news is, and they all ran with that story with those studies, like the local news on TV at night, and then all you heard was this type of stuff. I remember that. But like in the year 2023, when cell phone use and internet use is so ubiquitous and an everyday part of our life, if this was like, there would have been a huge, like, life-changing like uptick in what's going on here in our everyday life. People would have been developing these problems at a much higher rate in much larger quantities.
Oncologists would be screaming from the hilltops about this stuff, right? Like that they would be like, they would absolutely be ringing alarm bells, right? Like so in terms of like actual like The interview today on the main show was fantastic because it touched on a lot of these points, right? Like the difference between ionizing versus non-ionizing radiation. So RFK in the show said that Wi-Fi, whatever that means,
Yeah, the TV, like
Wi-Fi,
that's also another thing. Like, is he literally talking about what is he talking about when he says Wi-Fi? Like that is a good question to ask. Is he talking about like the mesh networks that we use? Is he talking about satellite, like Starlink? Is Musk gonna back RFK's beliefs there? Like he's backing his vaccine stuff? That's a good question.
even if we take into mean home Wi-Fi, right? Like your Wi-Fi networks at home, which is not, it's totally different from cell phones. Even if we take him to mean Wi-Fi at home, like, does he mean 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi or 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi?
That right.
Like, what specific, like, again, he's saying Wi-Fi, right, as this general thing because it's meant to conjure up this scary thing, but it's laughably non-specific to anyone who knows what they're talking about. The thing is, people don't, right? Like, people want to go out and buy like shungite crystals to protect them from stuff, or they want to buy like anti-5G bracelets to protect them from the 5G. But when you crack these things open and you hold them up to like a radiation meter, I'm having a mental blank because of all the EMF I've been exposed to. When you check these things are emitting ionizing radiation, right? Like you can go buy a wristband on eBay to protect you from 5G, but actually it's giving you a tumor in your wrist. That's like it's destroying the cells in your wrist. Like the industry around this scare tactic stuff is like vastly more valuable to them than actually finding out the actual answer. The bottom well, for me, the bottom line is this, right? They like to talk about like, oh, you know, it's like, you know, your microwave works the same way, right? Like they like to bring up these kind of scare tactics, right? The crappiest microwave is like 600 watts of energy, right? That's a crappy microwave. Most are around like 1,000 watts, right? Mobile phone radiation at peak is 3 watts. Peak. Home Wi-Fi radiation, about 1 watt. Bluetooth, because I saw someone in the chat I think mention, well, nowadays we use a Bluetooth and it's in your ear, so it's just as bad. That's less than a mobile phone. It's like less than 1 watt, right? This stuff won't penetrate the skin. I'm pretty sure, again, I'm not a scientist, but from the reading that I've done, you get more exposure to ionizing radiation going outside and touching grass than you do from using a Bluetooth headset or using a mobile phone, right?
Oh boy, don't tell them that because these guys really need to go outside and touch grass. So if we don't want to stop them from doing that.
It is just bonkers to me. It's incredible. But again, I just wanted to get that out there. Like it is a little bit more nuanced because I think it's like the instinct these days when you hear like, oh, such and such gives you cancer or it's going to kill you or whatever, and the science is being suppressed. The instinct when you hear that is to kick back and say, well, that's obviously false. That's not true, right? As with all these things, there is a small grain of truth to it, and a large mass has metastasized around it that is complete garbage. Right. But at the core of it, we need to remember at the core of these things there is something, right, that they're building on. It's not just bunkum, right?
Right.
And with that, I'll get out of your hair.
Always a pleasure, John. Have a great afternoon over there in Australia.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Take care. Let's go to a lot of calls. Jeez, a lot of calls today. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there. My name is Sam from California.
Hey, Sam from California. What would you like to talk about?
Well, at the risk of taking things a little bit off this RFK course, if that's okay.
Oh, no, please. I would like nothing more, honestly.
Great. I'm actually... calling because I have some questions which perhaps, hopefully, will maybe give you an idea for a future episode of Scam Economy.
Ooh.
But I'm just wondering because you've had some episodes where you talk about, well, you had an episode with someone where you went pretty deep into Tether and what they're up to current, or at least at the time, currently.
Actually, no, I've not really done a Tether episode. Actually, I've been that's the one episode I've yet to do. You might be thinking, I don't know. I certainly have talked about it, but I've not done a deep dive on Tether yet.
Well, you had a guest who talked about it because I remember you showing stuff about something that came out of the Bahamas or something, a lawsuit, maybe not a lawsuit, but something where they had to expose how much backing in US dollars they
Right.
actually...
Yes. That we did talk about that. Yes.
So I kind of would like to know. I don't know if there's been any recent developments on that because, well, and help me make sure I'm understanding Tether right. I think
Sure.
I am. But basically, Tether is trying to act like a Federal Reserve, like the Federal Reserve Bank when it comes to Bitcoin or whatever particular crypto it wants to back. Like when there's a dip or a big dip and Bitcoin is rescued, more or less, I'm under the impression that Tether, Bitfinex, essentially manufactures coins out of thin air.
Oh, they are. Yeah, they are certainly doing that. I mean, yes, that is sort of how Tether is acting. That is a correct sort of analogy there. Technically, they're Tether's a stable coin, tethered to the dollar, and it's sort of supposed to be like a safe sort of currency for people to leave their money in because it's not going to ebb and flow, and for people who make cryptocurrency transactions, you don't want to leave it in a crypto token that can be that could wipe out half of its value overnight. So you would put it in Tether. That's how it's sold mainly. But you're absolutely right that Tether and the few individuals, I think it's like 3 people running Tether, have basically become the overseeing, at least for the crypto market. For example, oftentimes when there is a major hit to crypto and all these tokens are tanking, and as you know, if you've listened to Scam Economy, the way Bitcoin goes, everyone else will follow. The only question is how much further will they go than Bitcoin? But when you see the market going through a tumultuous period, oftentimes you will find that Tether all of a sudden has, out of thin air, printed up billions of new Tethers, and look at that!
Yeah.
Look at that! The market is suddenly going back up, or at least stabilizing. Wonder how that who all of a sudden is buying up all these Bitcoin and Ether and all these other crypto tokens.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like asking somebody, some individual somewhere with enormous amounts of liquid reserves to fully fund, Nakamoto's dream by putting money behind Tether, which of course they aren't. And when that news came out about how much actual dollars, like real money, Tether had, it was something like 3% of the total Tether they'd printed. I'm sure and that's what they were claiming. That was the sunny side up picture as far as they were concerned. Hey, we've backed 3% of these things with actual dollars in an actual bank account somewhere, which to me, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, it really is just, well, I mean, there was that guy that wrote that article about crypto being a Ponzi scheme, but it really is. If new money stops coming in, or if enough people decide to exit, obviously that's bad for crypto in general. But if the Tether seems to be relying in the same way that a fiat currency relies on people trusting a fiat currency. I mean, you trust the US government, then you trust the dollar, basically, and everything seems to be fine. But with Tether, you have to trust Tether in order to trust Bitcoin. But if you lose trust, I'm just trying to make it clear in my own head. But if you lose trust in either Bitcoin or Tether, the whole thing falls apart, right? Or is that not quite right?
Right. No, I mean, you pretty much have it, honestly. The real deep dive goes into exactly how Tether is getting away with doing this.
Right.
It is only a matter of time, basically, before the whole thing sort of. I mean, I know people are probably thinking, how has it not happened yet? Well, I mean, the exchanges certainly show that the failure of many exchanges and the sort of downfall of cryptocurrency in the mainstream as an investment vehicle certainly shows and proves that, actually. It's not necessary that it all falls apart with all these exchanges and the market diving.
Right.
It actually perfectly shows that look how little the regular person, which makes up the vast majority numbers-wise, had to do with the purchase of these cryptocurrency tokens. Very little. Very little, because the market is upheld by a few big dollar whales, and then going further down that line, by no real actual money. If everyone who has Bitcoin or Ether or any of these big tokens, if they all decided tomorrow to sell, how much actual fiat currency would there be to split between all these people? And then how much has actually been propped up by stable coins like Tether, mostly by Tether? You would find that would be the moment you find out. I mean, I think anyone who thinks like that the exchanges and the crypto loan companies and all these failures we've seen in the crypto market that have taken out all the retail investors. Anyone who says, oh, that failure shows that crypto could withstand that, and that means crypto is strong. No, to me, that shows that those people never were significantly part of any of the valuations of crypto, and that the whole thing has continued to being propped up.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think, well, I mean, when I've explained it to some people, I've used an analogy. Well, I had to explain the analogy first because not a whole lot of people know about the 1720 Mississippi, company, the scam essentially. But it seems like it's the exact same thing to a degree. A guy owned a company and he owned a central bank. Basically, the French government gave this guy control of a brand new national bank that they let him create. And they also let him, for the first time ever, use paper money. Of course, it was a specie system. But he printed the money and he promised riches if you bought stock in his company. And so the French government even used debt. I mean, they used these stocks of the Mississippi Company to back their debt. So now all of a sudden, all the rich people in France want to get in on this, and there isn't enough money to buy these stocks. So he just prints more and more paper, even though there's well beyond the gold and silver that's needed to back it. But it all falls apart right away. So what I was thinking was that part of the reason that crypto has stayed afloat for so long, because the Mississippi Company thing collapsed pretty quickly. Obviously, the tulip thing in the Netherlands, and then the South Sea Company in Great Britain, and all these other things. Whereas crypto has the benefit of it being global and not really headquartered anywhere particularly, and just the ability to just slide around and make all these claims and statements to people who have the feedback in France or Britain were pretty immediate. I mean, once somebody realized that the Mississippi Company, which was premised on, we're going to go find riches in the Louisiana Territory, and we're going to get as much gold as the Spanish got in Latin America, and people are like, oh yeah, for sure. And then they realized that all of a sudden, wait, the Mississippi Company doesn't even have any ships. Like, they don't have anybody in the Louisiana Territory. They just have the rights to dig up, all the gold, supposed gold that's there. And it feels like enough people have seen the emperor has no clothes with crypto, but I'm wondering if the fact that it's international and the fact that it's like supposedly headquartered not nowhere, even though obviously it's extremely centralized, I wonder if that's allowing it to stay afloat longer. Like it doesn't have the feedback in the system like a normal market would have. Is that a fair assumption or a fair guess?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that is. I think I should do the episode on a deep dive into Tether myself, so we could get it, because there are some questions even I have in terms of how, they're just it's clear that it's clear that the major exchanges know what's going on with Tether, because they work directly with them, to basically bring these tethers into the system, so to say.
Right.
But
And is tether not a way for people also to move between currencies? It's like it could be a midway stop between moving from one crypto to a different crypto. Is tether like a holding tank and an in between period? Is that fair? Is that true also or no?
Say that one more time.
Like if someone wants to convert from one type of crypto to another, obviously they can go onto an exchange and have it done directly, but can stablecoins act, or have they acted as middlemen between that changeover as well, or is that not really a function of theirs? I mean, the main function seems to be to prop up this ridiculous, market, this house of cards.
Right. Yes. The main function on Tether's end, for sure. I think people do use it as a stable coin, basically, to make sure that it's they have a I want to say changing, but a more stable crypto token. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
To me, it's all fake, but of course they put a good name on it. And I've kept you on here long enough. There's one last question that I had unrelated to Tether specifically.
Sure.
But there's obviously legal action being taken now in the United States. Clearly, the new stuff that's going on with Binance and with Coinbase, but there's been something in the works for a little bit longer. And anytime I try to search for it, all I find are articles from super, crypto bro type places. And that's the Ripple lawsuit that's been in for a while. And it's hard to get a read on it because nobody writing about it that I can find is a legal expert. It's just crypto bros saying, "Oh, we've got this now, and if we win this case, then crypto forever, blah blah blah." But it's a similar action that the SEC took against Ripple and whatever their coin, XT something, I don't know whatever their coin is, but they took this action against Ripple because, like all these other companies, they were saying, "Oh, buy this token so that our company can do well," basically saying, "Hey, this is a stock." And it's been in court now. They took some sort of legal action. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it's hard to find information on this. And if you have, I know you have a lot of contacts, and if you have,
are you talking about Ripple, specifically Ripple?
Yes, but that case specifically, because I have a friend who, for a while, he was, had money in crypto and all that kind of stuff, and he got out of it, but he still has money in this particular coin. When he bought it, it was whatever a coin. Now it's pennies on what he bought it for. But there are people out there in the crypto world saying if they win this lawsuit, this thing is going to go up, 2,500% or whatever, and then it's the dump at that point. So they're all hoping they win this lawsuit so they can all dump, which is essentially proving the SEC's point in real time. But I don't know, I can't determine from what I've read if the validity of this of their claims. I mean, nobody on who's a legal expert or who knows what the hell they're talking about, who understands the SEC, that I can find is weighing in. And granted, I'm not the best, researcher in the world, but it's every article, it just seems to be either old because David Gerard covered it back years ago when it first popped off, or it's new and it's some crypto bro who's very, very excited and thinks that they're going to win, which it's in the Southern District of New York. It seems hard to believe that they have the edge on this one, but if you know anyone or can find anyone who gets more, I think that could be I think because that could also be a window into the current actions against Binance and Coinbase, at least to a certain extent.
Right. No, I actually don't know enough about the Ripple case, so that's another great episode idea for sure. I'll definitely put a Ripple and I gotta do my Tether episode for sure.
Please.
But both of them will go up on the on my list of episodes to do for sure. Absolutely.
All right. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and it's a great show. Both Doomed and Scan Economy. I've learned so much, but also you have really great listeners, and I enjoy hearing the phone call. So thanks so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye. All right. Let's go back to Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Well, that was fast. Hey, man, how's it going? It's Rem calling from Texas.
Hey, Rem, how are you?
Okay. I got the cold after 4 years of not being sick. It's crazy.
Are you doing all right?
Oh yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's tolerable. But anyway, I just wanted to give an update about Madge because of what the shenanigans he was up to lately, or just
about who? Oh wait, can I pull you up on the feed? I just noticed you're using video.
Yeah, you can. Go ahead, go for it.
Who are you giving an update on?
Madge, Tori, Torre. I don't know.
Oh, right. No. I know who you're talking about. You came on this show. Jeez, how many weeks ago? Just a few weeks ago to talk about your experience at the Libertarian Mises store, whatever it is. And so tell me an update on our good friend Maj Torre.
Okay, so interesting thing. It's kind of a rabbit trail. I had things kind of saved and ready to go, but so he dropped this video a while back, and because before he was never really attacking trans people per se, from his language that he used, but clearly if you attack drag queens, you're attacking everybody. So it's just everybody in the community. But he tried to make it seem like he wasn't going after trans people, just, broadly anyone who's reading sexual books to babies, which wasn't happening, and he couldn't answer that question. So he was he posted a video of him he walked out of a coffee shop, and then there was the progressive pride flag, and he started calling it the groomer map flag connected. It was like he's focusing on the trans colors, saying that this is the maps thing. And we all know he's either grifting, he's an idiot, or he knows what he's doing, but he's actually fooled by that very old 4chan hoax.
I don't think he's fooled, right? Yeah.
I have no clue, honestly, but he is definitely an asshole and a piece of shit. And luckily, Hassan got wind of it. Like, he has a segment on his show, Hogwatch, and it's probably my favorite thing he does. He goes through TikTok feeds or whatever, and watches hogs right-wing chuds just saying stupid shit. And Hassan really laid it into him, and it was great. It was pretty funny. You can find that clip on his main page. It's a much longer video because it's like a whole bunch of it's a collage of people, but he's at the very beginning of that video, and which I thought was great. But problem is, just recently, Fox News posted an article and referencing Madge in their Fox News article, which was bizarre, and it because they the whole reason why they did this is because of that trans lady activist and influencer who she was like flashing herself, but she wasn't flashing. She was just covering her tatas and like.
Oh, the one at the White House, right.
So this, of course, made Fox News went crazy, and in that article, they mentioned it, and the reason why I know that, I didn't read the article, but Alejandra Cabela, she's the one that found that in the article, and I couldn't believe it. There was Madge right there in the article, his little video, trying to like inform people, like, oh, I'm just asking questions, like what? But you weren't asking questions. You're telling people what you think this flag means, and of course, it was just demonstrably false, but it doesn't matter, it's already out there. And I've been trying to take it down for a while, and I think it's finally down. I don't think I see it anymore on his Instagram. He's pretty active on there. And I'm hoping I can at least take down his account completely. Also been a difficult thing to do. I'm not sure why I can't find Madge's Instagram. Did I like both? No, that's not it. That's not the one. Pretty sure that video got taken down. Oh wait, no, here it is. His Instagram handle is this is kind of weird. Big Daddy Tory. That's what was it? I think it did get taken down. And then he got mad when we're like calling him out on it. And he made another of why I can't ask questions. Why can't I ask questions? He keeps like
they know
he
knows what he's doing. It's not an accident or he accidentally believes it. No, he knows what he's doing. Absolutely.
Nope. It's still there. It actually got reviewed and fact checked, but it's not being taken down. Let's see here. I've like lost like everything. Let's see here. How can I send this? Let's see. Let's go to the email, and I can just email you this thing because everyone needs to know like where this is, so we can like try and report it even more. It got reported enough to where
drop it in the chat, and I know you can't put a link, so just put a space before the .com, and it should go, and then people can check it out. But yeah, I don't know if you saw, but it came out that he has
I did. Yes,
was arrested for what was it?
It was a few different things. And Hassan, in that little clip of his, he covers that where he was just kind of letting Madge just like dig himself a hole, and then it turns out he is a sexual predator in some way because he was hanging out with a 16-year-old and getting them drunk or something, and he got arrested for it. And the reason why he didn't get legally in trouble is because they didn't show up to court. And there's a
vindicated. I'm sure that's what he'll say. Vindicated.
Yes. He thinks that he thinks that it got withdrawn and therefore he's safe. But it's recorded though, and then also some sort of like man, I don't know what it was, like counterfeit fraud or something like that didn't get withdrawn. I think he did get in trouble with that. So yes, he has a criminal history in some sense, but the whole underage drinking thing with this young person was strange, and I guess we'll just never know exactly what happened. So yes, he is definitely a massive hypocrite.
Listen, these guys always care so much about the children, except when they're the ones doing something to the children. Yeah,
It's not a lie.
Allegedly doing
Okay.
something to the children. Yeah, I mean, it's really no surprise at this point. What is it called? Like pedocon theory or something like that?
Yeah. He's definitely proving that to be a thing. But with the Pentagon theory, every accusation is like a
Every
projection.
accusation is a confession. Yeah. Rem, thank you so much for the call. Everyone, check out the episode that Rem came on. It's on the podcast. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/MattBinder. Have a great night, Rem.
You too, Matt. Take it easy.
Bye. Oh, wow. We got a few patrons. I want to make sure I shout them out while we're still live. Joe K, Danny, and Man Shovel, thank you so much for becoming patrons at patreon.com/MattBinder. I will shout you out on the main first half of the show next week for sure. Again, if you can, patreon.com/MattBinder to become a paying subscriber. It has been a rough month in terms of patron subscribers. We've been going backwards, sadly. Partially my fault, just for, I guess, not keeping up the hype of the show. I mean, I do the content, and it's just, I guess I need to be a better marketer. But if you can, patreon.com/MattBinder. Thank you so much to all the patrons and to Joe K, Danny, and Man Shovel for subscribing just now. And I'll shout anyone out who subscribes right now too, obviously, before we end the show. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Susan from Nashville.
Hey, Susan, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing? I called in. Yep. I called in before about NFTs, specifically in the game Neopets.
I of course I remember you. And I really do need to do an episode on that, like an actual official episode. But what do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk about something a little bit different, maybe to justify being on Doomed rather than scam economy, but it's still Neopets related, if that's okay.
All right, yeah, let's do it.
I want to talk about the similarities between how Neopets has been run and how Twitter is currently being run.
Ooh, did you just like put together like a dartboard full of Matt Binder's interests and then throw two darts and then just combined both of these things that it landed on? My God.
Well, it's probably going to wind up being more like the meme where they're trying to with the conspiracy board, if you remember that one.
Ooh, even better. Let's do it.
So the reason why I wanted to draw the comparison is that I'm going back in time. In 2014, Viacom sold Neopets to the studio Jumpstart, which actually is going to close down, but not Neopets. It's like we got the news about that like 5 days ago or something like that. So that's extremely new news. But anyway, this Jumpstart acquisition happened in 2014. At first, people were mildly optimistic because they were like promising things like, we understand the base is now mostly adults and not just kids. And personally was slightly excited because I just remember Jumpstart from my childhood and being really into those games. And not only were Jumpstart games, they're like the Jumpstart Spanish or something. They're honestly composed of my first memories ever as a kid, like when I was a toddler, these kind of things. So everyone was kind of optimistic about the change. Maybe things will stop being so stale. But instead, a year later, they fired almost everyone. Like it was all the everyone on the staff who knew anything about the game, similar to Twitter. And kind of what I consider that time like the beginning of the dark ages of Neopets, because you had very slow content. There's no and people did stick around kind of, because I mean, if you're sticking around that long for a game that's kind of tedious, then you're kind of in like a really big fan of it. It's like an MMO sort of. But they're just in it, but it was like a slow burn, right? So they didn't have enough developers or institutional memory or anyone to keep up like moderation, but not like message is boards moderation, just kind of like making sure people weren't cheating. I think that they have to be pretty strict about message board moderations because they're still technically like a kids site, and you have to make sure you just like they have stricter laws about that. But anyway, but because of this, and with the death of Flash, things have been getting so bad on the site. Now, let me talk to you about the bot situation on here. There was last year I met maybe
Sounds like Elon Musk needs to acquire it so he could move on to
bringing this around to Elon Musk and his bot situation. Don't you worry. It's so bad that as I said last year, there was like data breaches for Neopets, and it was a big deal. They needed to really that really pushed them to make two-factor authentication a thing. But so one guy who has access to the back, this hacker who is some kind of chaotic neutral force in the community, leaks all kinds of like the ins and outs of the code behind the scenes with enough accuracy that people pretty much believe him. But he found that in the past there's a single person who hacks into old accounts, because old accounts make it easier to make Neo points through different games that require old accounts. So he has 40,000 accounts, which is more than what the daily users, and he makes so much money that it generates like 8 times the amount of money per month. Like that, inflation's been horrible on this site. He found like connected to like just kind of based on the items this guy has, he was able to tell that through the site where he sells them, for actual dollars, because some people actually buy stuff like that. He made $15,000 the other month. So he makes 15,000 actual real life dollars selling items and Neopoints on Neopets, ruining the economy, ruining basically the whole website. So all that to say that if Elon really plans to monetize tweets, my prediction is that would destroy the entire site. It would, like the t-shirt situation is already huge, right? Where if you say the word t-shirt, it's nothing but bots trying to sell you something.
Right. No, yeah. I mean, he's already degraded the site. It's undeniable. Anyone who who doesn't think that Twitter is. I mean, and I say this as someone who's personally grown my own Twitter account tenfold, even though I don't actually mean 10 times, since Elon Musk took over. It's been obviously quite good for me because of what I cover. But I'm easily able to step outside my very own personal bubble and see how the site has been degraded for literally everyone else. It's a huge difference between now and when he took. I mean, now and before he took over. The site is without a doubt. It feels cheaper. The user base is worse. The content is worse. The advertisements that you receive are worse. There's no doubt. And I'm not talking about like political ideology or anything like that. I just mean in a general sense in terms of if you're going to run a successful social media business.
Yeah, I've been because of how old and decrepit Neopets is, I've been thinking a while about how a website would end and what it would take for Twitter to become so significantly worse that it's on the it's in life. And I'm just imagining that it's possible, years out, because as I said, this Jumpstart takeover where they fired everyone happened in 2015, and I feel like it's become only unusable in the last bit, I guess, the last year or so.
Right.
Man, I'm imagining, because this guy who has so many accounts, he runs like everything. This singular person who earns more money than everyone else combined. And I'm just imagining a website where 50% of the user base is robots. Because that's the thing, they can't chase down everything if they're just trying to keep the site alive.
Right. So this one person who basically has taken over all these dormant Neopet accounts. What is?
That's another interesting thing. So what they do to do this is they apparently go after accounts that have dead email addresses. So like because of the leak, they have the list of email addresses, so they can look up the email, and if it's like a dead email, then they can just recreate that email, and then that's how they get into the account. And I was just thinking about how much worse that's going to be now that Gmail has canceled so many, or is going to cancel so many email addresses. That was terrible too, by the way. My university, for that reason, decided to discontinue my email address that I've had, since I was 18, and now I'm migrating to a new one. It's very annoying. I know I should have done it sooner, but yeah, that was a bad decision.
Right. Now, is this still going on there?
Oh yeah. It's the economy is all messed up.
Are you talking about
real life and in game? They messed up last year. There's the most masochistic year after year. The most masochistic tournament goes on for every June, actually. So it's going on right now, where people play the most monotonous games for hours a day to get points. And it's called the Altador Cup, and people actually get really into it. It's like a World Cup, and people join their own teams and have communities. Anyway, they messed it up so bad last year with shadow banning people. That's another one, but that this the guy's username who leaks everything is called Neotruths, which really makes me feel tinfoil hat. But anyway, he revealed the shadow bans, and oh man, that was some great drama. Like if you really want that niche hobby drama, there's a whole write-up on hobby drama or subreddit.
I think I know I've told you this every time, but I really got to do the episode. I got to figure out who to get on though. I think you even recommended someone though. Did you? I don't remember.
I could
Maybe not. But do you have someone to recommend?
Maybe I do. I can see there's someone who would know all the stuff.
Sounds perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Have a thanks for call, Susan. Have a great night.
Yep, you too.
Let me know. Send me an email or a Twitter DM, or you know how to get a hold of me. Just send me somewhere on Skype right here.
Okay.
Whoever it is you want to send my way.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Let's go. Ooh, what time is it? We'll take maybe one or two more calls. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, bud, it's Charlie from Washington. How you doing?
Hey, Charlie, I'm doing good. Can I pull you up on the feed?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Hey, Charlie, what's up? What do you want to talk about?
I want to bring up two things real quick as sort of like an alert. One of the things I like about the queer community and whole is how much everybody watches each other's backs. So I got two little alerts from Reddit that I want to kind of put out there. One, a couple of weeks back, there was a scam going around. It was called, there are these people trying to sell fake estrogen supplements. And it was called, I shit you not, I can't believe it's not estrogen. Like if you read the description of it, it's just like, if you asked an AI to write a cartoonishly satire description of like an estrogen pill, it was pretty obvious that it was fake, but it was only up for like a day. You know, that's false advertisement. But the big thing about it was the main ingredient that they were putting in it was ashwagandha. Now, there's like not a very likely, but like a tenuous link that it increases testosterone. So not only were they trying to trick people, but they were also trying to trick trans women like myself into getting something that would do the opposite of what they need. Mm-hmm. And more to the point, apparently in 600 milligram doses, it can cause serotonin sickness, I think it's called. And the recommended dosage they were putting on the bottles was 2 doses of 2,400 milligrams each. So, you know, they were trying to really hurt people. So, you know, if you're not getting your HRT through doctors, be extremely careful. And then the other thing I want to say is I woke up on Monday to a Reddit alert where somebody may have overheard a planned mass shooting at a Pride thing in Gatlinburg, I think. I'm not sure what state, but they mentioned Tennessee. They got the guy's picture. There's apparently a couple of other people there who like overheard the potential mass shooter, and they were trying to contact the authorities. Last time I checked, they tried to contact the local police, but they weren't too terribly interested, but they were still trying. You know, no guarantees that he's actually going to go through it, because there are a lot of people who say shit and then not do it. But, you know, just stay safe out there. It's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah. Thanks for calling in with that. Yeah, it's I think we've talked about this a lot on the show about how it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that's a very scary example, actually, of that. Yes.
Yeah. For the I can't believe it's not estrogen. Kaylin Conrad did an actual pretty good summary of everything involved with that. I think it was one of the Proud Boys who was running that, or somebody associated with the Proud Boys, and like they took it down. He might actually be in some serious trouble for it. So you know, it was only up for a day. And like pretty much everybody who looked at it was saying, yeah, that's obviously fake, but they still put out the alert. And, you know, I appreciate that about the community. On a fun note, did you see Charlie Kirk bitching about Juneteenth?
I did.
Yeah.
I did see what he said.
See, I bring this up because he was talking about how they were using it to supplant the 4th of July, and like not even a few moments ago, I heard somebody lighting off fireworks, which is pretty common every year, like the week leading up to July, just not even in the same month. They're already starting it. Like, and I'm thinking about like last year, right at the beginning of October, they started putting Christmas shit up. So I'm like, come on, man, be fucking for real, man. Go fix your shrinking face, dude.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just, I swear to God.
I think it's great that they want to go and complain about an extra day off, because go bring that to normal everyday people, and tell them you want to take away their day, one of their days off.
We're not even getting the extra day off because it's a fairly new federal holiday. I mean, it's been a holiday for a while, I guess, but it's just newly a federal holiday. I didn't get it off. I would have loved that.
Well, I think maybe I'm wrong, but I do. It's a bank holiday, so a lot of people do have off.
Everybody go take Juneteenth off. Celebrate the end of slavery in Texas. I think that's what it was, right? They had to send the Union Army down there to force them to actually release the slaves after Civil War or something like that.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, people I think might be under the belief, and this, this is how they teach it in schools, I think, or at least they don't get any further than this, really. Maybe not anymore, but when I was a kid, it was like, oh yeah, then the North won the Civil War and slavery ended. Just like as if like just like that, everyone just happily freed their slaves, and no, that didn't.
Yes, I am a huge proponent of teaching the real American history and just doing away with the mythology of it all, because people need to learn that, sometimes people who did good things were terrible people, and sometimes good people did terrible things. Life's pretty great like that. But anyway, I'll let you get to some of your other callers. Have a good night, bud.
Have a great night. Let's go back to... Oh. We just lost everybody. had a ton more calls, actually. Really had a whole slew of people who've been trying to call in. I think this is. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is JFK, and I understand that you're talking about my nephew on the show. Is that correct?
Oh my God. Wow, coming in with that thick accent. Wow. I thought you were dead, Mr. President. Hello?
Hang on. Okay. What I want to say is
I thought you were no longer with us, Mr. President.
What? I'm still here. Did you?
I mean,
me and my son.
I mean, no more. I meant no longer with us in life, not on the stream.
Oh, okay. Hey, you gotta understand. I had a hole in my head. What can I say? But what I want to say is just what a nutball my nephew is.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is not really JFK.
No way. You kidding me?
Matt.
Did you see that Trump accidentally he was talking about RFK Jr. Earlier on like Newsmax or something, and he accidentally said JFK.
Yeah.
He knows him well. That's gonna give so much fodder to the QAnon people who believe that JFK is still alive.
Exactly, and he was going to show up in Dallas. Yes, that was.
Oh, he's going to show up any day now. There's that group, that contingency still believes it.
Wow. You know, I've been really really depressed for the last 4 weeks or so, and I finally had something that got me excited, and I wanted to call in and share it. And I bet you that you had already heard of it. Have you heard of a group called Task Force Butler?
I have not. No.
All right. So what they do is they track the neo-Nazis, like the Patriot Front, and who go to these various different protests. They go to Pride events, they go to Juneteenth events, and they march and they wear those gathers over their face, and they all wear the same, like hats and khakis. So you know who the Patriot Front is, right? The neo-Nazi group. You've heard of them?
Yes.
Okay. So this group is great. It's a former military group of people, and the guy who's ahead of his name's Christopher Goldsmith. And what he did was just some of the same things that I do, which was understand that your opponent is going to try and use all the various different, liberal weaknesses, like, what they see our strength as weaknesses, like, well, you believe in free speech. And so just like the ACLU would want to support the, Nazis marching in Skokie, these neo-Nazi groups use the same thing. So what they do is this group, the Task Force Butler, named after Schmedley Butler, of War is a Racket, they track these people. And when they get them, they figure out what laws that they're breaking, and then they bust them. They observe them, they record them, they use various different methods in order to get them in the system and get them to actually get them for some of their crimes, like they make death threats. And he was on the president was on the Nicole Wallace show on Friday, talking about how this was happening. What the thing that I really liked about this guy is he said, you go to these events like a Juneteenth event or a Pride event, and you see this group marching. Now, your first inclination would be to videotape them. But I don't want you to do that, because that actually helps them spread their propaganda. What we do is want people to take high resolution photos of them, their face, their torso, even with their masks on, so that we then upload it into our database cloud, very much like the insurrection hunters. And then we identify them, and then we track them to the various laws they break going to these events. And they give in this great document, which it's called Task Force Butler / Street Teams. And they give people instructions saying, this is the statutes they break when they cross state lines. And like, for example, they cover the license plates of the trucks that they go in. And they find that these members, you can't wear masks on these. It's like, it's so smart, because they know that these neo-Nazis people are not stupid. They know how to work the media. They know how to work the police. And so they teach them to say, hey, you need to educate the police beforehand, because the police will be on their side sometimes, because, or the media will think, oh, it's just, free speech. So I was looking at this, and I was going to do a whole post on it, and then I was so depressed. And so then I went back to watch the movie The Producers, and I thought, well, I'm going to make a musical out of it. And so the line that I came up was from the song Springtime for Hitler. And they go, springtime for Hitler and Germany. Da, da, da. And then the guy cuts to, he says, don't be stupid, be a schmotty, come and join the Nazi party. So I changed the line to that, was like, don't be stupid, be a schmotty, come and bust the neo-Nazi party. And I'm going to put that to music, just because it's so distressing just to kind of like say, oh God, we got to go through all these things and fight them. But if, we'll do a little fun thing about it, and let's make it so that these bad neo-Nazis get prosecuted and go to jail instead of letting them use the media to, promote their cause. So that was the one thing that I've been excited about the last 4 weeks. And so I just wanted to call in and do my Mayor Quimby imitation, talking about how RFK was Jr. Was terrible. Oh, one more thing. Remember your guy that I met, who is the head of the Center for Countering Digital Hate?
Yes.
I have been, big fan, and I've talked to him, and they did this great report called the Disinformation Dozen back in March 2021. And they showed that 2/3 of all the people who spread disinformation came from 2/3 of it all came from 12 people. You know who number 2 on that list was?
RFK Jr. Yep, I did
Exactly.
I did a write up on that when that study came out. I covered it.
That's where I learned it from. You.
Yeah, I had them on. I had them on the show. Yeah,
it was great, and it's great.
Not RFK Juniors, to make people who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about. I had the head
CEO
of that organization. Yes,
Imran. Yes.
Yes.
So it was great, and they really went to Congress with that report. Congress said to the CEOs of these social media companies, "Hey, you need to deplatform these people." The report made it very clear they were violating your laws. They're violating laws. They're violating your terms and conditions. And all this tech CEOs, oh yeah, we'll deplatform them. They put out a report a month later. Only one of them was deplatformed. RFK Jr. still there. So that's when I talked to Imran about this, he said, this is why the social media companies, there need to be a financial penalty when they do this spreading of disinformation, because they always will profit from the engagement. They don't care that it's, deadly. And so when I saw that RFK Jr., I went back and I thought, how many of this information does he still spreading on Facebook and those people? And I just found out that Facebook, I don't know about Twitter, they've stopped some of their restrictions on disinformation. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, Twitter doesn't have anything anymore in that sense. They have completely given up on that purposefully because Elon Musk doesn't care about that type of stuff.
It's one of those things. Did you see? And I followed this like right after Trump came back on Facebook, and he didn't post right away, but he did his first rally. And my friends at Media Matters were tracking this, and Facebook would not allow Trump's Facebook profile to stream live his rally because they thought they were going to, say some, violent rhetoric or whatever. And they didn't. They didn't. He let them. They streamed it through like Red Blue Network or some other kind of bogus Newsmax thing, but not natively. And so the most recent big rally that he had after his most recent indictment, they just like streamed his rally and with him, witness intimidation and tampering. And I'm just like, whatever happened to those guidelines that they installed to get it? Just pissed me off.
Because he's running for president now, so they have to So they have to reverse course on all these things again. Yeah, I mean, it's I don't even know what to say.
Well, this is what had gotten me really depressed as part of it, and it was a great person did a piece called it was the Professor Ruth Ben-Gate. She did a piece about how the psychology of autocrats, about how they use this, lawfare, like it's psychologically exhausting us because we never see him, be defeated. He never sees any pain. It's always like, oh yeah, he's coming back. And I realized that just is exhausting, and there's just a word for it, and it's something they do on purpose to destroy our, morale, and it's working on me. So I was just blah. So anyway, I feel like I was talking this the other day, and I was like ranting, and I was like, okay, I'm ranting because I haven't gone out of the house, I haven't talked to people, I haven't seen anybody face to face. I've gotten really depressed, and I should just be watching Stargate SG-1 instead of this.
Yeah.
Because it's funny.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Spocko. Always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And good night from San Francisco. Be sure to listen to the fabulous podcast, The Scam Economy. God, I even said it wrong.
That's all good.
The Scam Economy with your host,
late.
Matt Binder.
Ooh, I love it. The voice of Scam Economy, folks. Have a great night, Spocko. Always a pleasure.
Good night.
All right, folks. Let's read some IMs, and then people trying to call in still. I gotta call it a night. We're at the 2.5 hour mark now, and I gotta read some super chats. I'm already feeling it. I don't want to give you a bad performance. That's not quite the word I'm looking for, but you can probably already tell now. I'm starting to, oh my God. Omega, you always calling at the absolute latest time possible. I can't do it. I can't do it. Sorry, buddy. Next time. Let's read some super chats. Wanda with a super chat. Great news. Virginia anti-choice Dem was defeated tonight. Is that the one who switched, Wanda? Wanda with another super chat. Thanks to people like RFK, we lost a young church member, only 40 years old, who refused COVID vaccine. He left 3 kids. Dangerous misinformation. That's horrible. Yes, absolutely. These people need to understand that they cause they're responsible. I mean, are they directly responsible? I mean, we don't know who exactly this church member heard from, but without a doubt, this rhetoric, especially from someone like RFK Jr., who is at the top of the food chain in the anti-vaxxer realm, they have blood on their hands. Absolutely. Deporize with a super chat. Appreciate you, Matt. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Tokyo Hans with a super chat. Joe Rogan needs to change the name of his show to Dumbed. What? Parker with a super chat. Do you think 2024 will be closer than 2020 electorally? Honestly, I could see it being the same map if it's Trump. Honestly, I could. I could see it being the same map if it's Trump. It's totally dependent on who runs, who wins the Republican primary. But if Trump wins the 2024 Republican primary, I think it's very possible you see the same map, same exact map. Andy Boom with a $10 super chat. Binder is great. Binder is great. Futurama reference. Also can't watch live but want to support live. Thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate that. Parker with another super chat. Will RFK get more or less delegates than Tulsi got? He'll get more. Because it looks like... So, the DNC wants South Carolina to go first. It looks like Iowa and New Hampshire are going to go against that and run first and hold theirs before South Carolina. If that happens, Joe Biden has already said he will not be on the ballot in Iowa and New Hampshire, which means that it's totally possible that RFK Jr. wins Iowa and New Hampshire. This has happened before. I think in 2008 with Michigan, if I'm remembering correctly, where certain candidates were not on the ballot because of something like what was going on here in terms of the state party not running their primaries when the DNC wanted them to, or something like that. But yeah, it's possible RFK will get more delegates than Tulsi. Very possible. Kowalski with a super chat. Dang, I had kittens ready for the call. Oh, Kowalski. You didn't even call in, though, Kowalski. You're not even there. Your name's not even there, buddy. Let's go over to... Oh, where's the YouTube? We got another Patreon. Patreon subscriber. Brendan Hirsch. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Thank you so much for becoming a patron subscriber. It's a name without any vowels for people who think I'm just being an idiot. I'm going to guess Brandon or Brendan H. Thank you so much for the patron subscription, my friend. Geez, I should talk about how horrible things are. I mean, I wasn't making it up. The Patreon subscriptions had a rough month. Usually, listen, a couple months ago, we were on an uptick. And then for a number of months now, we've just been maintaining a steady number. We lose some, and then we gain the same amount. We lose some, then we gain the same amount. But then June was the first time where we lost, May, June, because obviously we go into June. It's still June. So May into June, we lost a few people due to, financial issues, loss of job. But we didn't gain like we usually did. We're still down, even with the 4 new patrons today. That's how what a rough 30 days it's been. But you 4 who subscribed just now, along with the longtime patrons, are helping me at least maintain. Maintain means, I can't grow the show, but you won't hear me going, I got to cut back. And by grow the show, I mean more content. I'm trying to just basically figure out how to get in more cutting of clips and things like that. I really need to do that. Let's see. And of course, patreon.com/MattBinder. It's still time to become a patron subscriber. I still lost the Twitch thing. Where's Twitch? Here's Twitch. Over on Twitch, we got even the Twitch subscriptions have been down, and those are mostly Twitch Prime subscribers. It's been a rough week. I hope people are doing all right. Rough week. It's been a rough month, like May into June. I hope people are doing all right. I've lost like 25 more, it looks like 20, 30 even 30 Twitch subscriptions, and those are usually the Amazon Prime like freebies that they get. Tokyo Hans resubscribed for 1 month at tier 1. Subscribed for 12 months. Thank you so much, Tokyo Hans. Oh, and so if you watch Leftist Mafia, you'll know that they've been telling me to turn on the YouTube subscriptions. And I've had some people reach out to me like, why don't you turn on the YouTube memberships? I would prefer to, subscribe via that. And I will. And this is why, and I'm going to need all your help here. So YouTube is reached out apparently to a number of channels who they want to turn, they want channels to turn on the YouTube memberships, obviously, because it means more money for YouTube too, obviously. But that's how it is for all these. Patreon gets money, Twitch gets money. That's how it is. But they reached out to me, and they're offering an incentive for me to turn on the YouTube subscriptions, and then a second incentive if I could just get like 3 dozen people to sign up on YouTube within 30 days. It's a pretty good incentive, actually, and it would be a big help to invest in more into the show. So I'll let you guys know. I'm going to turn on the YouTube subscriptions probably in the next week or 2, and I will put out a video too, and we'll really push that for a little bit. All right, folks. That's the show. What was I going to say? The drill. I got a Scam Economy episode coming up. I'll let you know the details on that, when it's going to debut, when it's going to come out. I have Leftist Mafia on Thursday, Majority Report on Thursday. And yeah. That's the show. Thank you all so much for all your support. Oh, James says they have lowered the goals to make partner. Well, I am a YouTube partner. I've been beyond that for a while. Yes, they did. That's good for everybody. But I am a YouTube partner. I just have to turn memberships on YouTube, which I didn't do because I originally just wanted to focus on the Patreon page and try to siphon people to one central location. Because that worked out for some really big, Patreon pages, people with thousands of Patreon subscribers. But I have the Twitch subscriptions on for the Amazon for the Twitch Prime subscriptions, and I get dozens of Twitch Prime subscriptions. So maybe it doesn't make sense for me to do that, and for me to just open up as many subscription channels as possible, and people can just choose what they prefer, and maybe even double dip where they want to. Like maybe some people want to do Twitch and Patreon, or Patreon and YouTube, or whatever. Santa Cliff with the last minute super chat. Hey, Matt, what is your favorite Foley moment? I loved when he fought Edge and he gets slammed on the table. Oh, there's so many McFoley moments because I'm wearing my McFoley shirt. He's one of my favorites of all time. Everyone says the Hell in the Cell, obviously. Him winning the world title is a special one. I will always love when Dude Love comes out to quote unquote save Stone Cold Steve Austin. His work as Cactus Jack is always great. A lot of Foley moments. Let's see. I had a great Father's Day weekend, by the way. I saw someone mention it. Took my kid to a independent wrestling show on Friday. Took my son. Daughter is still a little bit too young. He loved it. We got to see Carlito and Zack Ryder, who's now known as Matt Cardona. Hijo Vikingo, great Lucha Libre star, was there as well. Alex Shelley, Impact champion. And then on Saturday, I took him. It was my first time and his first time going to Yankee Stadium, and also both of our first times watching a professional soccer game. We saw the New York City Football Club, which was fun. I think I'm hooked now to MLS live. That was a lot of fun. Just like I'm hooked to indie wrestling live. It was a good time. Had a father-son weekend for Father's Day, and then obviously on Father's Day, spent time with the whole family, daughter included, and my dad. Saw my dad, Binder Dad. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for everything. All the support, all the subscriptions. If you can't afford to do so, I still appreciate your support. It's not all about the money with me. I'm not Vince McMahon. It's all about the money. That's his one of his famous lines. All right, folks. I will see you all on Thursday. And other than that, I will see you all. Thank you, Critical Revolt. Who should I rate on Twitch? Always like spreading the love. You pretty much. Denise said you look like Prince. I actually have got that before. I've got that before. If you're talking about me and not somebody else. Who did you recommend Critical Revolt? Doobie All right, sure. Why not? I will. Are they a lefty streamer? What do they stream? Doodle Burb. Let's see. Quickly check out the channel. Wait, they're a VTuber. I don't know about that. I've had bad experiences with VTubers. Who else should I rate? All right, I'll do it. I'll rate a VTuber. Oh, wait, Keffels is on. I didn't know Keffels was on. Let me rate Keffels because it's been a while since I've been on and she's been on. And I will definitely get Doodle Burb next time. I'll hit Doodle Burb up next time. I promise. Critical Revolt. Keffels hasn't been streaming lately. Wait, but Keffels is using Keffels using a VTuber thing right now too. I'm very anti no, not Keffels. Very anti VTubers. All right. Wait, is Keffels on? No, I don't think Keffels is on right now. Oh no, Keffels is. Keffels is watching an AI thing, that SpongeBob AI thing. All right, I'll rate Keffels another day. What's Doodle Burb doing? Oh wait, people don't want me to raid Keffels? I was just gonna not raid Keffels because she's watching a SpongeBob AI thing. Yeah, I know Keffels. There's been things. I think I like Keffels. I don't even know what all the drama's about. I think a lot of people give her shit, and she's been through a lot. Whatever it is that you have an issue with her on, I think she deserves unless it's something truly horrible, she deserves a mega pass for the Kiwi Farms thing. Not everyone can't be perfect. Keffels is not worse than Illuminati. All right, I'm taking too long. I'm just going to rate Keffels because I know Keffels. All right, everyone. Oh, Dietrich with a super chat. $10 super chat. Keffels cool. I think Keffels is cool too. I'm a fan. We're not gonna agree on everything, everybody. I'm rating Keffels. I'll get Doodle Burb next time. Wait, I'm able to raid Keffels at this time? Why can't I raid Keffels? Why can't I raid Keffels? All right, so I guess I will do Doodle Burb. Did Keffels turn off raids? Maybe you could do. Maybe you could do that because I know she probably gets shit from people, right? All right, Doodle Burb it is. Have a great night, everyone. I'll see you all next time on Doomed.